Just for information, there'll be no decisions made here today. These will just be recommendations that will be referred to the next council meeting on November 19th by the Committee of the Whole. So I'll call the meeting to order. It's 1 o'clock. Ask for a motion, please, for the adoption of the agenda. Councillor Elmsley, Councillor Richardson, all in favor? That's passed. Is there any disclosure of pecuniary interest? Anything on today's agenda? Seeing none. We'll move right into deputations. So our first deputation, I'll just remind everyone they have 5 minutes for their deputation. I do have a timer on my desk, so I'll keep an eye on you. Item 4.1 is a ban of plastic bags in the City of Kawartha Lakes. Jamie Morris, the Chair, and Deborah Pearson on behalf of the Kawartha Lakes Environmental Advisory Committee. Welcome, folks.
Hello, good afternoon, Mayor Letham and Council. I'm Deborah Pearson, this is Jamie Morrison. We're from the Environmental Advisory Committee. Our Chair, Pat Warren, couldn't be with us today. She sends her regrets. We're here to speak for CLIAC's resolution on the need for a ban of single-use plastics and styrofoam. As you'll find in the staff report, the actual resolution is there in detail. So plastic and styrofoam require vast amounts of our natural resources to manufacture, transport, and dispose of. Once in the environment, plastic harms wildlife and leaches toxic chemicals. Litter is not only costly to clean up, but has been shown to reduce property values and influence tourism. Flooding can be caused when litter, such as single-use bags, clog storm drains. 8 million tons of plastic waste flow annually into the oceans from beaches, rivers, and creeks. The Great Pacific Garbage Patch, with an area twice the size of Saskatchewan, is only one of 5 of these large patches floating in our oceans. As Canadians, we've always thought of ourselves as pretty good at managing our waste and plastics, but of what we dutifully recycle, only about 9% is actually recycled. The rest has been shipped across the world to places like China and other parts of Asia now, or it ends up in the environment here. As you know, China stopped taking our plastics over a year ago, and now other developing countries are shipping it back to us. They don't want to be our garbage dump either. So large cubes of the bundled stuff are piled up in our recycling facilities across the country, and there's a lot to pile up. Canadians use 15 billion plastic bags a year and millions of straws a day. Of all plastics that were once thought to be recycled in Canada, 90% end up incinerated, leaving toxic ash to deal with, while the rest goes into our landfills, parks, and lakes. More than 22 million pounds of plastic end up in the Great Lakes every year, and it never really goes away. Researchers have found stunningly high amounts of tiny plastic pieces in all 5 Great Lakes. They found microscopic pieces of plastic in drinking water, beer, and nearly all fish samples collected. Much of it's coming into the lakes from rivers. The Trent system, for example, feeds into Lake Ontario. The question of how plastics are impacting human health is being carefully studied, and there's many areas of concern: hormones, heart disease, diabetes, cancer. These researchers are still working on this, and there's more to come. Every stage in the life cycle of plastics is responsible for greenhouse emissions through extraction, transporting fossil fuels, refining, manufacturing of plastic products, and waste disposal. Recent research shows that when the most common plastics degrade, they release greenhouse gases as well. The connection between climate change and greenhouse gas emissions linked to plastics points to an area where City of Kawartha Lakes could see reducing single-use plastics as one of the actions that could contribute to reducing our greenhouse gas emissions to meet targets set in the Healthy Environment Plan. Emissions from the production of plastics is expected to rise dramatically over the next few years, at the same time as greenhouse gases need to drop to net zero in order to reduce climate disruption. Thinking about the costs of waste management is key in eliminating single-use plastics from the waste stream, but reducing carbon emissions to mitigate climate change is a critical piece of the picture as well. We don't produce plastics in the City of Kawartha Lakes, but we're definitely participating in their life cycle. Public anxiety over plastics has moved from the impact on oceans to how we live our daily lives, considering the impact on water, soil, food, and human health. 86% of Canadians want politicians to take more actions on plastics. Towns and cities like ours are taking action. For example, in August, Woodstock Council endorsed a prohibition on single-use shopping bags. It approved a ban in principle, but asked staff for a report on the logistics of implementing the ban. Some other municipalities in Ontario, Peterborough, Kingston, Blue Mountains, Markham, and Woodstock are on the same page and the same stage in working on this. There are other municipalities across the country doing the same thing. Here in Montreal, grocery store, I saw this 2 weeks ago when I was there. Translated, it just says, as of September 3rd, there will be no more plastic bags at the checkouts. Prince Edward Island has a provincial ban, and this is their waste management CEO saying, we've seen the volume go from it would be probably about 30 to 40 million bags a year to almost nothing. So these are photos of litter in our beautiful municipality. That plastic bag in the tree hung there for over 3 months. I watched it because it was outside my front door. It blew out of a recycling bin, and nobody could retrieve it. It was too high up. And then it blew off finally and went into the environment somewhere, who knows. So the cost of plastics, recycling and disposal, climate costs through emissions, harm to wildlife, potential harm to human health, contamination of air, soil, and water. So alternatives do exist. We've got all kinds of opportunities here to switch away from plastic. In a recent survey of 100 businesses by CKL's Waste Management Department, 77% said they would consider using alternative packaging, and 2/3 said they could make the change within a year. So our Environmental Action Committee encourages Council to pass a resolution to implement a phased-in ban of single-use plastics, starting with shopping bags and straws and styrofoam in 2020, and implement a public education strategy for eliminating single-use plastics and styrofoam. This would be a voluntary ban. It becomes since it's a voluntary ban, it becomes crucial to have a strong public education and support initiative, and EAC volunteers are willing to help. So what can be done? We could start off with a BYO bag campaign, and this has been very successful in municipalities in other parts of Canada and the United States. We could promote alternatives to plastic and styrofoam, and this could be done through the city media and signage. We could assist in identifying sources of alternative packaging and recognize business successes with green awards and certificates, maybe a little sticker on their door saying that they have reached a green status level.
Just get you to wrap it up if you can, please. Thank you.
So in the absence of provincial or federal bans by 2021, we also asked Council to take leadership by passing a bylaw to ban single-use plastics and styrofoam. Let's act now and be part of the solution. Thank you.
Thank you very much. It's an important topic, so appreciate you coming. Get a motion to receive. Councillor Riley and Richardson. Are there any questions for the deputy? I just have a clarification. So you're basically, when you said a voluntary ban, you're supporting the report from the staff report from our staff that's later in our agenda, correct? Because there was a little bit of confusion on the resolution from your environmental committee that's in the report versus your deputation. So I just want to make sure we're on the same page.
Well, we are, but we want to see action sooner than waiting for provincial or federal legislation. That's still a big if, and we need to act now and get on board with all the other municipalities that are doing so and have been for a few years now. So, yeah.
And I don't think anybody here would disagree with you. We just need to put something in place that's enforceable.
Yeah.
And that once we start that voluntary ban, if we go down that route as a council, then I think when the province, does their provincial-wide ban, which hopefully will be soon, then we're set up perfectly to align with that and sort of go from there. So
it'll be less painful if we're there helping and volunteers.
So I think we're talking the same language and we both want the same thing. Thank you. Councillor Richardson, you had a question?
Well, not a question. I just want to thank our CLEAC team and committee today for coming out and doing this presentation. We realize how important it is to our municipality, and we appreciate your efforts. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. We have a motion to receive. All in favor? That's passed. Thank you very much. Our next deputation is item 4.2, Mr. Steve McCullough, regarding a ban of plastic bags in City of Kawartha Lakes. Welcome, sir. You got it.
There we go. Well, nice preface for me coming up here. My name's Steve McCullough. I live in Thurstonia Park, Dunsford. And I'm going to give you a real-world application of what it means to do this. I live in I'm a professional musician and private music teacher. I've left business cards with the front desk to give out to everybody here. You can look at my 2 websites, but I live in this 2-bedroom, wood frame cottage that I've made my home for the past 10 years. My family has a very long history in the city of Kawartha Lakes. McCullough family has owned a cottage on Cameron Lakes. I'm 66 years old. Dad bought it when I was 4, so I kind of grew up here. Anyways, way I thought I contribute to this is that my own personal experience. As a single man living in where I live, I recycle as much as I can, but being single, if I can produce less than a grocery bag worth of garbage, I can use that rather than a clear bag. Okay, that's step one. So when I go to the grocery stores, of course, I get grocery bags so I can have grocery bags to put my garbage in. Two bad habits that can be easily eliminated. So I'm going, okay, so that goes. But people that produce more have to use clear garbage bags. Fair enough. So I called your garbage unit or whatever, but I called in and I go, what am I going to do with my garbage? Can I put it in my garbage can? Will the garbage collectors take it? And I called and asked, and the girl said, let me check, but I think so. And she came back and she said, yes. So real world application is ban all plastic bags. And then, just put the garbage in. Yeah, it's going to take a little bit more effort to wash them out every week or clean them out, whatever. But this voluntary stuff, I don't agree with at all. Voluntary does not work. We should have a ban starting in 2020. Clear. The same as I see later on, we have David Kerr. Is Mr. Kerr here? Oh, okay. You're calling for the same thing, a voluntary ban, right? You mean, I usually do a lot of my shopping at Food Basics. You mean I'm going to walk into Food Basics and that stack of cases of water bottles are going to be gone? You're going to ask them to not sell them anymore? Are you crazy? This is a big business. You have companies like Nestle's that, that pull water out for next to nothing. We've all heard about that issue. And other companies that are doing this and making tons of money off of this. Right? So a voluntary ban will not work, period. Right? So I'm calling on a ban of plastic bags in the city of Kawartha Lakes. And, depending on what I see from that, I'll be, talking to Ron Ashmore, my great representative in the city of Kawartha Lakes, about how this is received and how it's going to go forward. But, this is the same stuff that Trudeau promised as well. But it's not going anywhere. Why don't we set a standard and go ahead and do something? So I'm calling for the ban of plastic bags in the city of Kawartha Lakes. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. We'll see if there's any questions for you. If you just hang there for a minute, we'll get a motion to receive. Councillor Elmsley and Ashmore. Councillor Elmsley had a question?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, through you to the deputy. You're aware that Sobeys has announced that as of February, you won't be able to get plastic bags in any of their stores?
Yes?
So it's kind of the leading edge, I think, and I think once a company the size of Sobeys does that, people like Loblaws and so on and so forth will eventually follow. Our problem, I think, with implementing a ban is we don't have the ability to enforce it. So I think...
Can you clarify that for me?
Pardon?
Can you clarify why you don't have the ability to enforce it?
We don't have the number of people it would take. Are we going to stop every vehicle coming in to the Kawartha Lakes to inspect them to see if they're bringing in single-use plastic bags? Or
I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about getting all the grocery stores in the city of Kawartha Lakes to not provide plastic garbage bags, to have all the stores in the city of Kawartha Lakes to not sell clear garbage bags or plastic bags of any sort. That's what you guys can do.
And what I'm suggesting to you is, it's already starting with one major store, and it will trickle to
Voluntary.
the others.
Voluntary, not
Sorry.
good enough.
Thank you. Any further questions? We have a motion to receive. All in favor? That's passed. Thank you, Mr. McCullough, for sharing your thoughts with us. Item 4.3 is a deputation regarding affordable housing for seniors. Dave Hellman. Welcome, sir.
Thank you for allowing me to speak, Mr. Mayor, councillors. I'm speaking on affordable housing for seniors. It's quite apparent that I'm a senior. I'm here because recently the Chamber of Commerce in Kobe had plans for an apartment building in Kobekonk, and it was supposed to center around the train station. Our group has been working on the senior housing thing for a couple of years now. It was part of a campaign I even had on my election literature at the time. Kobekonk, we all know there's revitalization needed in Kobekonk to bring it up to snuff, to be a tourist destination, to increase the flow of commerce. It's a service town. We don't want to see it disappear. Up on your screen there, you'll see a picture of the land. That's the railroad station, that yellow part. Section A is the piece of property that was set aside by the Kobe Council back in 1994. It was deed registered for the retirement residence. Retirement residence was sponsored by a group called Shedden Place, and the name for the residence there was going to be Shedden Place as well. Seniors housing, the problem with seniors housing is that many people do not have pension plans. 2/3 of all the population don't work for a company or an organization that has a pension plan. So most of us just rely on old age and CPP. That's usually quite great when both parties are still alive. So as soon as one person goes, it's very difficult to maintain your home. They have to get out, and they really don't have many alternatives. They don't want assisted housing because then you run into situations where there are ruckuses in the hallways, or this one lady recently, as I'm sure you're well aware, woke up from a deep sleep and she was looking at a guy standing in a nude in front of her. You know what? That's totally unacceptable. When you live in a seniors residence or assisted living residence, you should take pride of ownership. You should feel safe and secure in the unit that you live in. The proposal that I'm making is based on a plan that is that's what they had envisioned on that property that the city owns. That right there is a place called Tollendale Village in Barrie. The blue section in the center is a long-term care unit. The other units are condominium type units. We've referred to them as apartments. There are 284 units in that complex. They have a waiting list of over 1,000 applications, 1,500 people. My mother lived in one of those units. She said for her senior years, 10 and a half of those years were the best years she ever lived there. We would like something like that to come about in the city of Kawartha Lakes. It is privately funded in a way. It's not funded by a major corporation or any big business. The way it is done is they sell a life lease. A life lease is for an apartment within the complex. Oops, they're not in order. There we go. There's an apartment, the Willow. you could get a unit like that in my mother's complex there, 633 square feet. You could rent it by the month, or you could get a life lease at $131,000. You have to pay a monthly fee like you would in a condominium project, $589. Well, that's quite acceptable for people on their own. They can afford to live there. The nice part about owning a life lease there is if you should die or if you have to move or go into a home, you or your executors get 99% of your money back. That's a great concept. People can afford that. That's what I'm proposing we do with that piece of property in Cobeconk. It would, the city would own it. We would have a nonprofit organization that would manage it. And the managing of the Tollendale one, it's great. I mean, went to visit Mother. You couldn't meet happier people that live there. And I know a couple up here that a friend of theirs lives there. They go there, and she just can't say enough about it. I think seniors deserve to be thought of. It's seniors that help make Kawartha Lakes into what it is today. We shouldn't ignore them. There are so many of them that still have lots to offer. They want to retire in the communities that they've worked and lived in. And we basically have nothing north of Glenarm Road, and we think it is time that the city consider putting something there. People up our way to live in Lindsay or Bobcaygeon or Fenelon Falls, we've got tons of people that want to live up there. One of the ladies here today with me, her husband is in chronic care for Parkinson's. It would be so much easier to visit them in Cobeconk. Many people are in the same boat. It would be easier to visit a loved one. You could, when you live there, there are people, a lady called this morning and she said, we got to sell our house and move out. Not nice. I have friends on Balsam. They're going to move out to Walkerton. I said, why would you move to Walkerton? Your son comes up from Toronto. I said, you think he's going to make as many trips out to Walkerton? No, he isn't. I said, well, wouldn't it be good to have a place in Cobeconk? Yeah, but we can't wait for that. And a lot of us are in the same boat. We cannot wait for that. Some people say to me, why are you working on this? Well, I'm working on this because it should have been worked on 25 years ago. Emmett Yo's father there was on council of Bexley when this proposal was made, and he was one of the people that backed it. Right, Emmett? And
Just ask you to wrap it up if you can, please.
yeah, okay. So basically, I just want seniors to be heard. I would like for us to have a seat at the table in Cobeconk or what's going to happen to the railroad station so that everybody has the opportunity to present, and let's come up with the best possible solution. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So how about we do a motion to receive and refer to staff to work with the proponent and bring options back for council's consideration by Q2 of 2020. Would you move that, Councillor Yeo? Thank you. A seconder, Councillor Richardson. Are there any questions for the deputant, Councillor Yeo?
Yeah, and thank you, and through you, Mr. Mayor. It is a great plan. It was a great plan 25 years ago, but it was turned down by the province at that time. And just want to make one correction to you, that the Chamber of Commerce is not looking to build an apartment building up there. They're looking to make a medical center, and that's it. Any development that comes in as far as seniors housing will be private individuals, such as your group. So I encourage you, once the timing is right, to work with the Chamber and the city and approach it at that time. They have no plans at all to be involved in any development up there, outside of the medical center itself. So.
That's what you said when I talked to you before.
Yeah.
That's true, a medical center. It was based on, as well, private housing, correct?
The opportunity in that piece
Yeah.
of land
Yes.
to welcome investors to build exactly what you're talking about.
Well, okay, that could be, but a doctor's office could be part of our project as well, okay? To say that the best
I
spot,
think that's what staff is going to work with you guys on, to come back with a report in Q2.
well, that's great if that's what it is, yeah.
Absolutely. And I thank you for coming today with your group, and
Good,
And I
thank you very
encourage-
much.
I
Any-
encourage you to keep pushing because you're definitely right. We definitely need to keep our seniors at home.
We do, we need it. I told Andy 4 years ago that I didn't want to move to Timmins because I didn't know anybody there. I don't know if you remember that, but I still feel the same way today.
I do not, but we're glad you're still here.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any further questions? Councillor Riley?
Just if you're looking at concepts, Guy Mills Court in Lindsay, for example, is one that has a life lease. So there are concepts that are around that maybe can be part of the discussion or report coming back.
No, there are, and there are various types of life leases as well.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you for coming today. Appreciate it. We have a motion to receive. All in favor? That's passed. Okay, item 4.4 is a bylaw revision to allow, a deputation for bylaw revision to allow backyard chickens. Kim Van de Mark and Rhonda Singer Robinson. Welcome.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, for hearing us today, and thank you, Council. Our proposal is to amend the current bylaw 217-039 to regulate animals in City of Kawartha Lakes. The purpose of this, communities across the country are starting to allow backyard chickens in growing numbers, including most recently Peterborough. The current language is a one-size-fits-all restriction, and the bylaws, as far as we're concerned, are intended to maintain community standards and protect the rights of citizens to the enjoyment of their own property. Currently, there are homeowners throughout our municipality that do have backyard chickens, and we have learned that they're completely unaware that this is actually an illegal practice. We've made recommendations to remove chickens from the list of restricted animals in residential areas. Bylaw to amend focus on care, conditions, respect for neighbors, and not-for-profit practices rather than a finite number of birds. Acknowledge larger rural properties when determining rules for small urban properties, and introduce a permit system for coops that can be revoked if the keeper does not maintain satisfactory standards and practices, also providing a source of revenue for City of Kawartha Lakes, no roosters, and no home butchering. Ms. Robinson is going to further expand on our submission.
Okay, so Mr. Mayor, as my friend Kim here was saying, we've come to you today to ask you to reconsider the current ban on backyard poultry. We have numerous reasons that the decision to allow backyard poultry will be an easy one to make by laying out the facts and dispelling common misconceptions about these backyard birds. It has been said that allowing backyard poultry will be loud, smelly, and will attract small predators like raccoons and rats. Research on numerous farms has shown us that this is in no way true. Hens are quiet birds. They are quieter 70 decibels than barking dogs, which are around 90 to 100 decibels. Hens usually only make any sound while they're in the process of laying an egg, and it lasts only under a minute once a day. The sound may also be muffled further behind the walls of the coop. Poultry is no different than any animal. Proper care must be the main focus to keep any animal in good health. A coop that smells is not clean. It is no different than a hamster cage or a dog run. The owner is expected to keep the area clean and sanitary. The bedding can be composted or decomposed of any way any organic material waste is. On the issue of new attractions for city predators, every chicken keeper knows there is a ton of money in poultry because they've certainly spent enough of it themselves. Chicken food is expensive. Chicken food is expensive, and a simple way to keep raccoons from eating it is to keep feed and treats safe, is to use proper containers. It is common to see bear-proof boxes, metal garbage cans, small sheds, and even freezers used to store livestock feed away. Backyard poultry will also help with this organic waste materials that would otherwise be sent to landfill. Kitchen scraps can be fed to the birds now instead of waiting a week to be picked up and taken to landfills. We can also note that chickens can be kept in movable coops during the day, known as chicken tractors. These tractors allow birds to peck at the ground while still being protected from predators. This serves multiple purposes. The birds can eat grass, grubs, and most importantly, ticks. The grass stays trimmed naturally, and the hens are able to turn out worn grass into a lush lawn simply by grazing on it. This means less chemicals and nicer lawns. They are also great mulchers. Give a hen a few pile of yard and garden debris and they will make quick work of it, eating what they want and pulverizing the rest. No need for bags and curbside pickup. There is also the issue of preserving our local history. Agriculture in the city of Kawartha Lakes is #1 resource, yet many people are becoming more and more removed from farm life. The local agricultural fairs are lacking in exhibits, and this can be remedied by encouraging agriculture among our children. In 2018, the Fenland Fair had 1 youth exhibitor in the Feather and Fur Show. In 2017, there were under 5 youth exhibitors. This year, with the help of a local farmer, my dear friend Ashley Leonard lent out her poultry to any child in town who wanted to show. This year, they had over 20 participants in the youth show as well as the junior showmanship class. It shows us the interest is definitely there, and families are eager to nurture their children's love for animals and agriculture. We have over 400 signatures from people who are in support of our desire to be allowed backyard poultry. This doesn't mean that 400 people are going to run out and buy a coop and birds. It just means that they are happy to support those of us that want to. We would also like to note that the area for the covered petition was very small, only covering the areas that were near to our personal homes and having the help of small businesses around our local area, allowing petitions to be visible in their establishment. Allowing backyard poultry will put money back into the community by a way of sales, fencing, and building material, and local fair participation. We cannot think of a valid single reason to not allow backyard poultry and are very encouraged by our local youth's interest in the small area of agriculture. There are hundreds of cities who allow backyard poultry, and the majority of them are much larger than the city of Kawartha Lakes. Los Angeles, Toronto, and California can make it work. I'm sure we can. The Ministry of Agriculture already has proper care protocols, and we are suggesting we use their already researched guidelines to deal with any problems that may pop up in the near future. Mr. Mayor, we thank you for your time and trust that you will make your decision based on the facts about poultry and not the misconception surrounding the idea.
Great, thank you very much. Appreciate that. What is council's wish? Councillor Seymour Fagan?
Yes, I'd like to receive it and refer it back to staff or report back to allow, for options to allow backyard chickens by the end of Q3.
Q3, so, okay, can we, if it's okay, we receive the deputation, the correspondence, and the petition. Refer to staff to come back with options, present options to allow for backyard chickens for council consideration back by Q3 2020. Okay, you'll move that, second by Councillor Elmsley. Do you want to speak to it?
It just makes sense in our community. We're agriculturally based community, small and rural, and again, like the lady said, it's becoming popular in all the other areas and large cities like Toronto. People should be able to raise their own food if they want.
Councillor Elmsley, you're good? Any further questions? Director, you had a comment?
Yeah, just for council's information, I know that it is an issue that's been forwarded to the zoning bylaw consolidation review work that's going on. So that will deal with the rural areas, but I'm just realizing that it wouldn't cover the urban areas, so we'd still need this. Thanks.
So we can get an update in Q3 as well. Yeah, perfect. Okay, so call the question. All in favor? That's passed. Thank you, ladies, for coming, and we'll see what we can do.
Okay, thank
Appreciate
you.
it. Thank you. Okay, well, there you go. We'll move into item 4.5, which is the deputation request to waive dumping fees for plastics. Guillaume Khan and Harry Long, welcome.
Hi, Mr. Mayor. Hi,
How are you?
Council. I'm good, thank you.
Good. Just take a second, let these folks leave, and then we'll be able to hear what you have. Go ahead, sir, and thank you.
Hi, I'm here representing Dr. Khan. I was retained to clean up the warehouse at 77 St. David Street, the old plastic factory. I was going to converge the job in May or June, and then the building caught on fire. So now we still deciding. And then the dump fees at the Kawartha Lakes are very, very high. So the budgets are like exploding phenomenally. So that's why Dr. Khan asked me to come here to see if we can waive the dump fees on all the waste plastic was left behind from the Pierce tenant.
Okay, and your tenant bought the building, with all the garbage in it,
Yeah,
and you're trying to clean it up.
Yeah, we had an estimate back 2 years ago, about $100,000. Now we spend more than that and didn't even get 1/3 of the factory removed because of fire causes extra. And he's trying to bring about 300 jobs between Fleetwood and St. David.
Do you know how much garbage you have? How much are you asking council to waive in fees? What would the fees be to remove the
They are
garbage?
$107 each metric ton. Our estimate, we probably have another 40 ton maybe to remove. It is very hard to estimate because they in the bale, so we don't know the weight until we actually go to the dump site.
Okay, well, I'll see what council wants to do. I might suggest that you take your stuff to the dump. When you have a final bill, come back to council and ask for some kind of relief if council wants to consider from the fees, once we know what we're relieving. But I don't know, I'll see what
Okay.
council wants to do. That would be my recommendation, but
Okay.
Councillor Helmsley?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm wondering, could we have somebody through you to maybe the Director of Public Works or to Mr. Kerr, whether somebody from Miller could go out and have a look at it and estimate what's there and what it would take to get it removed, or somebody from Public Works?
Or they could just take it to the landfill and then they would know exactly what the cost is. What are you going to do if we don't waive the fees? Are you going to leave it there, or are you going to take it anyways?
Well, no, it will take longer.
You're going to take longer,
Yeah,
but you're going
because
to
the
clean it
budget-
up.
yeah,
You're
because
just
the
looking
budget.
for some help.
Well, he wants to get the building cleaned up because winter's coming, as you know. There's a
Okay.
hole in the roof that needs to be repaired, so there's extra repair that he's dealing with. That's why the whole job's on hold. Fleetwood had no problem. Fleetwood is all ready to go as soon as the licensing from Health Canada approve.
I'll see what the director wants to add. Brian Robinson's our Director of Public Works for
Okay.
Waste.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor, through you to council. Effectively, we're at a bit of a struggle point here. Staff does not go into private property to assess or review quantities of waste. It's not something, a service that we would provide. The approach that you've mentioned would make sense, that if the applicant still wants to continue to take his waste to the landfill, pay the fees associated with it, and then come to council for request at the end. However, this is no different than any other business that's out there with waste that they need to clean up from their site. So waiving this fee would be, kind of setting a precedent for other businesses that need to start and work within the community. Other challenge to that is that our tipping fees are not higher than other municipalities. They're in fact lower than most other municipalities. So whether he's moving the waste from there to here or to another municipality, it's still probably the most feasible solution for him.
I'll back that up. Our tipping fees are probably not high enough, and
Yeah,
we'll
we
be looking to raise them, so you might want to get it out of there in a hurry. So, so just so you know, I'm confident, 40 tons at $100, that's $4,000.
No, 40,000 tons, sorry.
You said 40 tons
No,
at
40
$100 a ton is $4,000.
Each bin holds 5 to 10 tons in each bin. We hired Ken Raymond, we were doing 3 bins a day.
Okay,
That convert to about $4,000 or $5,000 a day
okay.
in tipping fee. I have all the receipts also.
Let me see what our deputy mayor wants to do here. He won't sit down. Go ahead.
I'll give you that motion, that if they take it, that they take the waste plastic to the dump, and they collect the receipts, and come back to us to see if council, based on staff's recommendation, whether we should.
So receive the deputation, suggest your business property owner, take
Right.
take the material to the landfill site, and then if you want to come back to council with a bill, then council will consider it at that time once we know what the final amount is. So that's the motion. Do you get a seconder? Somebody will second that? Councilor Riley? Okay, good?
Okay, thank you very much.
It's the best we can do right now.
Okay.
Well, we'll see if
All
they
right.
want to do that.
I'll let
All
him
in
know.
favor? That's passed. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Mr.
sir.
Okay,
Thank you for coming.
Have a nice afternoon.
Next deputation is 4.6, winter maintenance on McGuire Beach Road, Raymond Blais Couture. Ms. Couture, you've been here before, so I'll remind you of 2.5 minutes for your deputation this time.
Thank you very much to see me today. I will not talk more about you guys, but I have to talk about me. 2 minutes go too fast. The reason why I'm here is because my first deputation was done in January. After that, you guys bring the motion back to your board. After that, Mr. Robinson didn't report to you. It was vote back from you guys as you refused to do the service. I understand that point. I would like to know why they have to put another deputation for you guys to get back to me with an answer of the decision that was made. I mean, we're not asking for miracle. I understand you already make your decision regarding this. I saw a lawyer corporation, as we are a corporation, and we need to get, they told us for us to create a bylaw, a very severe bylaw for the member of the association to pay the member fees. We need to get a letter from the city hall that would explain that for no reason at all, the city will not service the road for any winter service. And by us having that letter, we can implement a bylaw to the corporation that will enforce the people to pay their dues like this weekend, maintain our road for you guys later on to take it. You already have the deed of that road. We don't know when the deed was signed over to you guys because we don't have no copy of this. But my point was at the time is that you guys were plowing half of McGuire Beach. You will do our road. We will pay for a portion of the road, and that will cover for your driver. I don't know, you all vote against it, but my bottom of the point is I would like to know the answer. How did Mr. Brian Robertson base his report and what he have negative? I know you want you guys to assume the road 100%. For this, we need money, and this is something we don't have. Unless you reduce our taxes halfway, that will be easy for us to bring the road to standard. Thank you.
Thank you. We get a motion to receive the correspondence that's in your folder and the deputation, please. Councillor Yeo, Councillor O'Reilly. Is there any questions for the deputant? Councillor Yeo, go ahead.
Thank you, and through you. The options, thanks for coming again, Raymond.
Thank you.
The options of getting the city to assume the road, as you know, is a vote by membership. You need 66%, I believe. And then the cost of the upgrades can actually be put on the tax bill of everybody over a period of 10 years. That's a random number, but it can be spread on the tax bill over the years. It doesn't have to be paid all at once. So there are options out there. I've tried in this room to get the snow plowing. It has failed, so to bring that motion back again, I think wouldn't be allowed. Be contrary, probably. So I can't make that motion. I could attempt to make a motion at this point in time to simply have the city maintain the road, which I don't think has ever been actually made. And if that would be allowed, I would try that motion now to have the city maintain the end of McGuire's Beach Road, which I think is just around 1 kilometer long. They do most of the road already. As the letter states, a new property owner has bought the turnaround, and apparently will not let the city push the snow in there anymore. So there's a nice turnaround at the end of that little section of unassumed road, so I'm going to make the motion, if I get a seconder, to maintain that section of road for
Okay,
this year.
let's do receive the correspondence and the deputation first, and then I'll ask that you do a follow-up.
Well, then, okay.
All righty? Because I've already got a mover and a seconder for your first one. So
Okay.
let's deal with the motion to receive the correspondence and the deputation. All in favor? That's passed. Follow-up, Councillor Yeo?
Follow up that the city maintain the unassumed portion of McGuire's Beach Road. Wintertime maintenance. For how long? For at least this year, and that's it, like this year, so they can work on getting the road assumed. For 1 year. I have a seconder.
So you're not talking about contracting and charging, you're just saying that the city maintain the road?
That motion has already failed, so
Yeah.
I'm simply making the motion.
Maintain
that
the road for one more winter?
For 1 year, and the city maintain the winter maintenance on it for this season, and that the association had better get their act together and get the vote and go forward from here, but this will get them out of this year.
Seconded by Councillor Elmsley. Do you want to speak to it? Any further questions, comments? Councillor O'Reilly?
I'd just like Brian to comment on that. I think, not that I disagree with the motion, just that we have so many roads in situations like this.
I don't think we need to keep asking the director to comment.
Okay.
He's probably written 10 reports on this one road.
No.
So I'm not
No,
sure
no, I'm
what
not.
more
I'm just-
information he's going to supply with you. He's brought the information for, I'm not even looking at him. He's brought
Okay.
the information forward. Councillor, we've made a decision, and we've got another deputation, and now there's another motion to keep going on this issue. So I think you pretty well know where I stand.
Yeah.
But you can, I'm not sure any more information from the director is going to take us any further.
The only question I was going is that something that our roads department could do? That was the only question I was
Well,
going to
they'll
ask.
do it if they're directed by council to
Okay.
do it. Any further, sorry, I'm not trying to be snippy at you. Any further comments or questions? Seeing none, do you want to sum up? Call the question. All in favor? Motion fails. Motion fails, but we'll get the director to contact you regarding a letter. I'll ask the director to contact you regarding a letter that you can give to your association to see what it is you need to get them to start paying their fees. I don't know what we're obligated to provide, but I'll ask the director to contact you and you can talk to him about it and we'll go from there.
That will
okay?
be perfect. Thank
Okay.
you so much for your time.
Thank you very much for coming. We appreciate it.
Thanks.
Okay, we'll move into item 5. 5.1 is the Kawartha Lakes Agriculture and Food Action Plan 2020-2024. Presentation by Kelly Maloney and Bronwyn Wilton from the Wilton Group. Hope I pronounced that right. Thank you. Welcome, ladies. Get you to put that microphone on if you would. Thank you.
There we go. Thank you very much for having us this afternoon, Mr. Mayor and members of council. We're very pleased to bring to you this afternoon the new Kawartha Lakes Agri-Food Action Plan. This is a work in progress that you'll hear more from Bronwyn Wilton of the Wilton Consulting Group, who we have contracted to help our agriculture and food sector walk through the development of this plan. As you may well know, we had started with an agriculture action plan, which was originally created in 2010. And this followed the direction that was given by the development of an agricultural development, economic development impact study, which was from 2006. Council has been very supportive of the development of the agriculture sector since amalgamation in the form of the position that I'm in, the Economic Development Officer for Agriculture. Certainly, we've had an Agriculture Development Advisory Committee since well before amalgamation, and then through the work and the development in that action plan. There were over 46 actions that were contained within the original action plan, and those were all completed or are ongoing in successive steps and actions that are continuing today. So I'm going to turn over the podium to our consultant, Bronwyn Wilton, to lead you through the development of this plan and its contained, and I'll speak to you again at the end. Bronwyn?
Great. Thank you so much, and thank you, Mr. Mayor and council and staff for the time on the agenda today. I'm pleased to be here, and I also want to give acknowledgement to team member Krista Capitan, who was instrumental in this work, and the City of Kawartha Lakes Agricultural Development Advisory Committee was really important in the consultation process, and of course, staff member Kelly Maloney. So why an agriculture and food action plan? So as Kelly mentioned, this one was to update the previous agriculture action plan from 2010 for the next 5 years going out to 2024. The action plan is meant to be used to continue strategic efforts to support agriculture and food in the City of Kawartha Lakes, which is a really important sector for your community. And the city, through the Development Services Department, specifically Economic Development, will champion this work and track success. Local agricultural associations, agencies, and government staff will also be key partners in implementing the actions. So how did we get here to this point today? There was a survey back in the winter months of 2019, early 2019, and 67 farmers and 11 agribusinesses completed that survey. There was a summit held in March of 2019 with 48 producers and agribusinesses attending a full-day facilitated session. And a really important point to note here is that the City of Kawartha Lakes, the staff from across departments and divisions have been engaged to facilitate opportunities to work together to enact change so that things work together in a seamless manner. And the other part is the Agricultural Development Advisory Committee, as I've mentioned, acted as the project steering committee and will be influential in implementing the action plan. So it's important to note that. It's a collaborative effort. It's an informed action plan, so situational analysis of agriculture in Kawartha Lakes was used to inform the development of this plan. The analysis used a comparison of 2011 and 2016 data to identify trends and insights into the agriculture cluster in Kawartha Lakes. Another really important piece is that the action plan aligns with the City of Kawartha Lakes corporate strategic plan, the economic development strategy, and the healthy environment plan. It will also align with other strategies under development, including the cultural master plan and the destination development plan. And I have a timer on my phone here, so forgive me while I make sure it's still going. All right. The vision for the Kawartha Lakes was updated slightly from the last action plan. So the new vision, and this was developed in collaboration from the feedback we heard through the engagement process and also with the Agriculture Advisory Committee. And it's quite strong, I think, really speaks to the importance of agriculture in the sector. So the City of Kawartha Lakes Agriculture and Food Cluster is a leader in the use of science and innovation, collaboration, education, and farm-to-fork excellence. The cluster is continuously improving and contributing to a healthy community, landscape, and environment. The overview of the action plan is there's 5 objectives that we broke all the activities that Kelly mentioned. It is very active, lots of breadth and scope to the agriculture and food sector in Kawartha Lakes. So we've broken that down into 5 objectives, and each of those have a number of goals outlining the specific action items to be completed. So the 5 objectives are to continue excellence in agriculture and food business development and support services, enhance agriculture and food workforce development activities. And I'll just pause there to say this was overwhelmingly from the feedback a really important piece in the skills development, being able to find skilled labor and skilled employees for an increasingly technologically advanced sector was really important feedback. Ensure that municipal planning, infrastructure, and regulations facilitate agricultural development. Continue to build the Kawartha Lakes brand by supporting agriculture and food, and ensure that agriculture and food businesses are equipped to adapt to a changing climate. Under these 5 objectives, it's broken down into 11 goals. There are 48 action items to support those goals. And I just want to point out that of those 48, 20 are already committed and ongoing from previous work in this area. And with 12 additional ones being in short-term goals, action items, 14 medium, and 2 long-term. So you can see that there's quite a bit of work to do in this sector, and it's important to support this with capacity and resources across the different action items. All right, goal number 1 is to continue excellence in agriculture and food business development and support services. And what you have in your package, you have the full report as well as the slide deck. For the sake of time today, we won't be able to go through every single action item because that would take almost the whole afternoon. So I've pulled out a couple key ones that we can just highlight and talk about as ones that we thought would be nice to bring forward in the public presentation. So under this Goal 1, Action Item 1A would be to enhance the agriculture and food concierge pilot service provided by Kawartha Lakes Economic Development. And this would be to empower the pilot, continue to develop City of Kawartha Lakes pilot project to guide agriculture businesses in development, giving that single point of contact for somebody with a new business development idea or a new business within City of Kawartha Lakes. And the other piece to note across the top there is the action item itself, as well as the proposed lead and support and timeline. So this would be an example of one that's already current or committed. And the other thing you'll notice there is the City of Kawartha Lakes Economic Development might be listed as a proposed lead, but there's all those seeking additional community partners. These things don't happen with one person doing them. It's a collaborative effort across the community. I'll just go back to that one because I wanted to bring forward this point 1B was together with leading livestock genetics, host international industry groups and support international missions to continue to market Kawartha Lakes as a leader in livestock genetics with the aim to increase exports. And I just wanted to bring that one forward just to kind of speak to the importance of supporting that technological and innovative science, use of science in the industry within Kawartha Lakes. Great, and we'll skip ahead a couple. So under Goal 2, which is enhance opportunities in value-added agriculture, I wanted to bring forward the first one there, 2A, provide support to develop on-farm markets and experiential agritourism, how to expand, scale agritourism activities, funding opportunities, creating and helping people navigate bylaws, that type of activity. And again, this is an example of one that's current, ongoing, and committed. The other one I wanted to bring forward there is 2C, exploring further investment in Kawartha Choice Farm Fresh and continue to support collaborative networks where producers, processors, and distributors can exchange market information and improve regional and local linkages. And I'll note there in brackets it says relates to action item 10E. So wherever possible, we tried to create some synergies between the different objectives and goals to make sure that people could see where things fit together and work as efficiently as possible. So our next objective is to enhance agriculture and workforce development activities, and that's the one I mentioned was quite important in all the feedback we received. So an example of an action item there would be to conduct career days with agricultural sessions to connect agriculture and food business sector employers to potential employees, showcasing the opportunity for career advancement pathways. And here we heard specific feedback with a focus on youth, underrepresented groups, for example, visible minorities, new Canadians, etc. There's also some examples there in terms of collaborating with school boards, developing high skills, high school majors, and those types of activities. The goal 4 is to fill the gap between agriculture and food labor force and employer needs in Kawartha Lakes. And the one action item I'd pull out here for your consideration is to find partners to explore an agriculture and food skills development program within the city of Kawartha Lakes. The third objective area, just keep an eye on my time, is to ensure that municipal planning, infrastructure, and regulations facilitate agricultural development. And as an example of an action item there, and it's one that's concurrent and committed action item, is to update a clear definition, regulations, and policies for on-farm diversification, value-added agriculture, and agritourism in municipal policies in advance of the municipal comprehensive review. So again, speaking to the importance of working together across departments and with planning and economic development to ensure that all these policies align to facilitate economic development in the agricultural sector. The other one I thought would be interesting to pull forward this afternoon is 5B, to permit on-farm diversified uses provided they are compatible with and do not hinder surrounding agricultural operations. So it's another one where it's important to kind of see how do we align with things that people are wanting to do to be entrepreneurial and innovative in the agriculture and rural sectors and making sure those policies are appropriate. All right, we'll skip one more ahead. So as you can see, there's quite a few action items that we want to make sure we just keep to our timelines here today. Goal 6 would be to improve local infrastructure, and there an example would be 6C, about partway down the slide. Continue to support rural infrastructure projects and apply for municipal infrastructure funding. And again, that's a current committed, and with finances being the lead on that, proposed lead on that particular action item. Goal 7, I think you had a good morning this morning about development charges, so this fits well with your discussion from this morning. But 7A there would be to maintain a bylaw with exemption from development charges for all new on-farm structures. And this gets as well to that value added, the diversification that can happen on farm to improve economic outcomes. Goal 8, we have a streamlined bylaw and planning application processes for agribusinesses in Kawartha Lakes. And this gets at consulting with the Agriculture Development Advisory Committee and local agriculture businesses to determine ways to streamline processes relating to regulations on building permits, development applications, fill permits, and other items such as drainage ditch application and maintenance. So those are important things just to make sure people are being kind of walked through those processes and it's as streamlined as possible. Our next objective is to continue to build the Kawartha Lakes brand by supporting agriculture and food. And the action item I'd pull out for your consideration there, empower Kawartha Lakes business community to promote agriculture and food is the goal. So the action item 9A is an example of connect consumers to the Kawartha Lakes agriculture and food system by promoting culinary and agritourism experiences. And this aligns nicely with the ongoing development of the destination strategy for City of Kawartha Lakes, is how can we start to take advantage of some of these assets and resources you have in City of Kawartha Lakes for the agritourism, culinary tourism experiences that people are looking for. Goal 9 is empower Kawartha Lakes business community to promote agriculture and food is continued. And another example there is 9D, permit seasonal or open now road signage and other safety signage within the sign bylaw. So making sure people can actually find their way around some of these interesting agriculture and food destinations. Goal 10 is to continue to develop and strengthen the Kawartha Farm Fresh as the local food brand. An example of an action item there would be to develop a strategic plan to support and expand the Kawartha Choice Farm Fresh program, promoting local agriculture and food. And again, that's an example of one that links back to an item in 2F, so trying to keep things as efficient as possible. And the final objective, so objective 5, is ensure that agriculture and food businesses are equipped to adapt to a changing climate. And on that one, because we wanted to make sure we're taking advantage of good work that's already been done in the City of Kawartha Lakes, the action item is quite straightforward. It's to support the implementation of the Healthy Environment Plan to ensure the resiliency of the agriculture sector in Kawartha Lakes in the face of climate change. So the responsibility for the action plan is it will belong to council and be assigned to the Development Services Department and led by the city's Economic Development Division, well, also championed by the Economic Development Officer of Agriculture, which is Kelly Maloney. And with that, I will end my presentation and turn things back over to Kelly, and I'd be happy to answer questions after her wrap up. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Bronwyn. And so as we just had a brief look, certainly you could see as we flew through that presentation, there has been a lot of work put into this development. As Bronwyn mentioned, we started the project early in the year, and we took our time consulting with the agribusinesses, both farms and agribusinesses. I was really happy to have the input of my colleagues in the other departments in a meeting we held in June where they were able to provide some feedback on some of the initial thoughts that we had here in the action plan. So it really has been a collaborative effort. The Agriculture Development Advisory Board has met a couple of times, as well as participating in those surveys and the workshops. And so we've had the benefit of their guidance as well. By no means is this, though, a work that is complete. We have a long list of actions, as Bronwyn mentioned, and one of the key pieces is how do you resource and support that. So what our intention to do is, from today, we've introduced the list of action items to you, but we need to take time this winter and visit with our colleagues now that we have a final draft of the action plan, our colleagues in other departments and divisions where the items cross over with work that they have, but also out into the community. Our agricultural associations and organizations and other agencies, we do intend this to be a full community action plan. And so we would like to take the action plan to them through the winter and see which pieces they're prepared to work together with as partners or potentially take the lead, so that we'll have a short list maybe. What I can say would be the items that the municipality of City of Kawartha Lakes would be responsible for, which ones we'll be partnering on, and come back with a set of options for council and how to potentially resource it. Whether it be the existing level of support or potentially where there's some ambitious targets to try and expand development of the agriculture and food sector, then we'll provide that as well. So we intend to be able to do that work this winter and come back by the end of Q1. So And
Great.
that's the end of our presentation today. Thanks for
Thank you
listening.
very much. We'll see if there's any questions. So just a couple of clarifications. So when this comes back to council in 2020, I mean, there's a lot of information here, and you said there's a lot more, obviously, and I appreciate you going through it so quickly. I know we've got a lot on our plate today, but will it be narrow? Like, will you have the top 3 or something? Like, we have something that, it's hard to get your head around 100 different good ideas, and I'm just wondering, when you come back, will you be pulling each area into, this is our top priority, something that, we can all sort of get our teeth into and support, rather than, these 30 things that we're already continuing to work on and stuff, which it's all good stuff, but will we be scoping it down to sort of something identifiable in each category that we can, sort of all be a part of?
Yes, that's the intention, certainly. We can assure you that, that the work that we've identified that is continuing or ongoing is already supported in the existing budget. So that'll get us to be able to start this work in 2020, and it's not intended to impact the 2020 budget. So any decisions that we come back to council with will be narrow in scope and laid out on an annual basis. So for the annual work plan, we'll confirm what the 2020 work plan is for the 2021 and identify specifically which partners we would have on board for each individual process.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And do you see the plowing match next fall as a bit of a stepping stone to sort of kick this off and, utilize, we got a lot of people coming to town apparently, so, do you see that as an opportunity to sort of fit this into that, and how can we really sort of get some exposure and get this off the ground? Do you see that as a...
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor. Certainly the 2020 IPM will impact the municipality, and we're very excited that it's coming here. And as the months unfold, we'll be determining what impact that will have, certainly on my own work plan, but as well to other members of the municipality. And it will fit in with this. Certainly, one of the key pieces is promoting the agriculture and food sector in Kawartha Lakes, and that event will go a long ways to helping to do that. And we'll be able to showcase to
Perfect. Thank
to
you. We'll
Canada.
just get a motion to receive, and then we'll see if there's any questions. Councillor Ashmore and O'Reilly. You have a question, Councillor Ashmore? Go ahead.
Mr. Mayor, for you two presenters, thanks for the report. Just a question on education. I know that one high school, St. Thomas Aquinas, has a new co-op program. And have you worked with some of the high schools to kind of bring some more on board? And also, Fleming College at one time had a diploma program. So there's very few diploma programs that teach young people who want to go back to farm, like there used to be Guelph and Ridgetown and Kemptville. Kemptville's gone. University of Guelph doesn't offer the 2-year diploma program anymore, and so it's just Ridgetown. Very few left, but Fleming College had a 2-year diploma program. Like, have you ever talked to them and see if you can try and get this back? Because it was a really good program, and it seemed a shame when it had its demise about 10 years ago, I guess, and nobody really tried to get it back or tried to pressure the government or ask them to bring it back, because it's right in our back door here, and I'm just wondering if you ever communicate with Fleming College to get that back.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor, to the councillor. Agriculture education and agri-food education is one of the key pieces that we have been working on right from the early days of our action plan work. You may well know too that the Kawartha Farm Fest event is a public agriculture awareness tool in its event. On an annual basis, we do go to the Trillium Lakeland School Board events when they consult with their local partners and agencies, and we've been discussing these similar programs at the high school level for a number of years, and we're very excited to see the new secondary school program. Certainly, I also have the opportunity to participate on the Sustainable Agriculture Advisory Board at Fleming College, and so yes, it's a regular topic of addressing the opportunities for agriculture education. And when we consulted with the Agriculture Development Advisory Board and members of the public, that was one of the top items that they are supportive of us continuing. So as we've noted here in the action plans, we intend to, with council's approval, to continue that work. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions? Councilor Riley?
Mr. Mayor, thank you for the presentation. I know, just to build on Councillor Ashmore, the former Minister of Agriculture, Mr. Leal in Peterborough, was working hard to try and get an agriculture college in there before the last election. The other thing, Kelly, have you been working with Director Marshall around our new zoning, updating the zoning bylaw? Because I mentioned there was a couple things mentioned in it, so I'm just wondering, I'm sure you were, but just to confirm it.
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor, to the councillor. I have the opportunity to sit on the technical committee as one of the members of staff sitting on the committee providing input. We've also collected the input through our survey process that we did in this action plan and the work from the Agriculture Development Advisory Board and provided that for the guiding documents as well. Looking forward to working together with them.
Thank you. We have a motion to receive. All in favor? That's passed. Thank you very much for coming today. Appreciate it. I'm sure we'll hear from you again. We're going to deal with the report that goes with the presentation. So item 5.2, the motion is that the report ED 219-019 Kawartha Lakes Agriculture Food Action Plan 2020-2024 be received, that the Kawartha Lakes Agriculture and Food Action Plan 2020-2024 be endorsed, that in the first quarter of 2020, staff provide council with an implementation plan detailing community partnership support and providing options for resourcing of identified municipal activities through future budgets, and that this recommendation be brought forward to the next regular council meeting. You'll move that, Councillor Vale, seconded by Councillor Yeo. Any questions? All in favor? That's passed. Thank you. And we'll move into our next presentation, which is item 6.1, Tourism Strategy Update Presentation from Lori McCarthy, our Economic Development Officer for Tourism. Welcome.
I'll just get started as it's loading there. Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. The presentation today is to update you on the new tourism strategy that's being developed for Kawartha Lakes. So in 2016, the Council adopted the Corporate Strategic Plan with the framework to guide activities, programs, and resources. The first goal in the strategy, a vibrant and growing economy, included the objective to enhance tourism and the directive to update the tourism strategy. Current tourism data tells us that there are over 1.6 million domestic visitors to Kawartha Lakes each year, that there are 682 tourism-related businesses in Kawartha Lakes, that overnight visitors to Kawartha Lakes spend on average $81 per person per visit, and that over $106 million is in visitor spending is in our local economy in Kawartha Lakes. Tourism is significant as an economic driver in Kawartha Lakes, and although we are seeing an increase in visitation numbers each year, increased visitors does not equate to an increase in economic impact. So what we want to focus on is increased visitor spending and an increase in visitors' length of stay to increase the visitor spending in our local economy. We need to build a tourism economy that fits our communities, and we need to do that by understanding tourism, understanding our visitors, and understanding our communities. In 2017, the Economic Development Strategy was developed, and within the goal of growing the tourism business sector, the key objectives were to increase the volume of year-round accommodations of all kinds, to develop operator experiences to boost tourism traffic, to develop a guided touring sector, to expand visitation into the shoulder season and winter and connect these off-peak activities to culture, and to identify and support unique and differentiated retail that either generates tourism visits or extends those visits on a community-by-community basis. The objectives, all of these objectives will be included as focus areas in the new tourism strategy. The term destination development is a tourism term used within the sector to describe the strategic planning and advancement of defined areas to support the growth of a desirable destination for travelers by providing compelling experiences, quality infrastructure, and remarkable services to entice investment and repeat visitation. Through destination development, we envision Kawartha Lakes as a world-class tourism destination which offers remarkable products and experiences that are authentic, driven by visitor demand, and exceed expectations. Destination development is what we are striving for, and so the tourism strategy being created will be a destination development plan for Kawartha Lakes. The plan will be a comprehensive 5-year destination development plan. It will be a strategic plan to build and manage the visitor economy in Kawartha Lakes by working collaboratively with local and regional agencies, industry organizations, and tourism operators in Kawartha Lakes. The destination development plan will be a guide for long-term growth of the tourism sector in Kawartha Lakes. So the main objectives we want to achieve through the development of the plan are to identify the iconic, quality, market-ready travel motivators in Kawartha Lakes, to increase visitor length of stay, to increase visitor spending, to work with our industry and community partners to enhance tourism experiences and visitor services in Kawartha Lakes, and ultimately to increase the economic impact of the tourism industry to the Kawartha Lakes economy. The destination development plan will be created following the guiding principles that research drives product development, which drives marketing, that the strategy must align with the Kawartha Lakes vision of naturally beautiful, offering an exceptional lifestyle, as well as the Destination Ontario vision, which is to position Ontario as a preferred global destination. The process will be stakeholder and partner enabled to maximize the use of all available resources. Collaboration is necessary in order for the strategy to be successful. And recognizing that tourists are attracted to compelling destinations, icons, experiences, and attractions, and that tourists do not recognize municipal boundaries, and therefore regional collaboration and partnerships are also beneficial. We will explore 4 main areas during the plan development, which are local and industry-based research, existing and new products and experiences, the Kawartha Lakes visitor, and tourism stakeholders in Kawartha Lakes. Local and industry-based research will include tourism industry trends and best practices, as well as current challenges, threats, opportunities, and strengths. Existing and new products and experiences will explore the expansion and sustainable development of existing products and experiences in Kawartha Lakes, existing experience alignment with what is sought by visitors, and how market-ready these experiences currently are, and new development of sectors such as culinary tourism, cycle tourism, cultural tourism, experiential tourism, and signature festivals and events. Understanding the visitor to Kawartha Lakes will include looking at who are the current and potential visitors to Kawartha Lakes, what are their needs, and what travel experiences are they seeking. Ways to increase awareness of Kawartha Lakes as a destination, areas where investment is needed to strengthen existing opportunities and offerings that will create new reasons to visit, lengthen visitor stays, and increase visitor spending, and to look at visitor information models for offering visitor services, which will include industry trends and best practices. The needs of the tourism industry, businesses in Kawartha Lakes, and how to work in partnership with and support the tourism businesses will be a focus of the tourism stakeholder component of the plan. As well, recognizing that visiting friends and relatives makes up 49% of the visitor base in Kawartha Lakes, and looking at how to build a pride of place and a local ambassadors to better capitalize on the visiting friends and relatives market. And looking at our downtowns as tourism drivers and how development and revitalization of downtowns can be supported through destination development. We are taking a highly collaborative approach to the creation of the new destination development plan. We have received funding from the newly rebranded Ministry of Heritage, Sport, Tourism, and Culture Industries through the RTO8 Partnership Allocation Program to fund 50% of the project costs. Internally, we've established a steering committee to oversee the development of the plan and to work collaboratively on the creation of the new strategy. The steering committee includes staff within our Economic Development Department, as well as Jen Johnson, Manager of Parks, Recreation, and Culture, Richard Hawley, Manager of Planning, and Sherry Davidson, Manager of Communications, Advertising, and Marketing. Through the corporate procurement process, the team of KWL Advisory and Mellor Murray Consulting were selected to work with us on the development of the plan. Ken Lambert of KWL Advisory brings a wealth of experience and knowledge from the tourism and hotel development sectors. Ken has worked with many tourism destinations throughout Canada and specializes in tourism strategic planning and product development. Aileen Murray of Mellor Murray Consulting is an economic development specialist with expertise in both economic development and tourism strategic planning. Aileen brings an extensive experience in community engagement to the team, which will be a major focus of the stakeholder engagement process. And Aileen has worked with many municipalities across Ontario and throughout Canada, and we are very confident in the expertise, experience, and leadership that Ken and Aileen bring to the project. Tourism sector stakeholders play a major role in the development of the plan. We want the Destination Development Plan to be a guide not only for us, but for tourism organizations and stakeholders to be used when they're developing their own strategic plans. Therefore, we will be engaging the tourism businesses, stakeholder organizations, community groups, government stakeholder groups, staff, city staff, and council throughout the process. And we will be doing this through stakeholder engagement sessions, one-on-one stakeholder interviews, as well as an online stakeholder survey. The plan development process started with research and analysis. We are currently in the stakeholder engagement phase, and this will be followed by strategy development and then implementation of the plan. And the project was initiated in September with the procurement process. For the consulting firm, the plan will be completed March 31st, 2020, with the presentation of the final plan being made to council in late February. Oh, sorry, I missed that one. No, there. So to wrap up, currently we are in the stakeholder engagement phase of the project. One-on-one interviews are currently ongoing throughout the month of November. The group stakeholder sessions will be scheduled for the end of November, and we ask for your support in encouraging participation in stakeholder engagement, and we will be back in February to present the final plan. Thank you.
Thank you very much for coming today. Tourism is a pretty big part of what we do, isn't it? Mm-hmm. I got a motion to receive. Councillor Helmsley and Seymour Fagan. Councillor Helmsley had a question?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you, and thank you, Laurie, for your presentation. The one thing I'm hearing out there is, and you know, we have events and things going on in Fenelon Falls in a fairly regular order as we go along. And I hear a lot about, wouldn't it be nice if there was an events coordinator for the city to make sure that things got organized and on a calendar in a systematic plan, so that something going on in Omemee wasn't conflicting with something that was happening in Woodville, that was conflicting with something that was happening in Cobequid, that kind of thing. Is that anywhere in this plan or anywhere a thought of how we get forward? And coupled onto that, of course, is the whole issue of applying for grants and funding and all of that issue that we see as being onerous, and we have a lot of people spending a lot of time on it. Is that anywhere in the plans at all?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to the councillor, the plan, we've just started the stakeholder engagement component, so I would encourage event organizers to come out to our stakeholder engagement sessions and share that with us. Looking at festival and event development is part of what we are planning to do through the process, so that may come up. It's something that's going to be looked at, but because we're currently in the process of developing the plan, I can't speak to if that's one of the directives. In terms of assisting with grant applications, that's something I currently do. So through letters of support and providing direction on what grants are available. and we will continue to do that. But further to that, I would say that we'll wait and see what comes out of the plan, and the stakeholder engagement is really key. So I would encourage your constituents who have come to you with those issues to get involved with the stakeholder engagement process and share that with us.
Yeah, thank you. I'm sure they will. You know, they're not shy. And it's probably something you've heard before, but I think that it's certainly something I think our community needs in order to, if we're going to have a tourist and a tourism strategy, that plays a big part in it, because, you know, I think that a lot of people look at us as a community of events and festivals. We do them well, and we do them all the time, and I think that anything we can do to enhance that experience and to systemize it would be very helpful.
Thank you. Councillor Seymour Fagan.
Yes, thank you, through you. This is awesome, Laurie, thank you. You know how much Bob Cajun and the area rely on tourism. It's huge. Like, it's very, very apparent, especially as soon as Labor Day ends. The amount of people that are coming through the area, you've done such a great job. We're having people, and I haven't even shared this with you lately, but we have a lot of foreign tourists now, a lot from Europe and a lot of Australians coming through. The Airbnbs actually has made a huge difference in the area because people are able to stay with larger families. The one question I have that I noticed in your presentation, you said $81 per day for overnight visitors. Isn't that a little low?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to the councillor, that's the data that we get from the Ministry of Tourism, and it's domestic visitors only, so it does not take into account U.S. visitors or international visitors who typically spend more. But that's the number that's in the data that we have. I do believe it is actually higher than that, but that's what the stats tell us. And again, that is only domestic visitors.
Thank you. Any further questions? We have a motion to receive. All in favor? That's passed. Thank you, Laurie, for coming. Appreciate it. Emily, we want to give you our full attention, so we're going to take a 5-minute break, and we're going to come back, and we're going to deal with heritage. So let's take a quick 5 minutes. Oh, sorry. We got to do the report. Sorry. Report ED 219-026, Tourism Strategy Update be received for information. Councillor Yeo and Elmsley, all in favor? That's passed. Can we go now? Item 7, which is Heritage Matters. We have a Heritage Planning Update presentation, and I want to introduce Emily Turner, our Economic Development Officer for Heritage Planning, who I've had the pleasure of having a conversation with, and welcome, Emily.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and members of council. Thanks for having me today.
Is that too high? Is that too high? Do you want us to lower
Yes.
it? Are you good?
Can I just lower it?
We can lower the podium
There
if
we go.
it's...
Is that good?
You're good.
Sorry, I'm just shorter than
We're
everybody
good
else.
if you're good.
All right, so today's presentation is to give an overview of listing properties on the Heritage Register to go along with your report on that subject, and also to give a brief update on a couple of other heritage matters at the end. So in 2017, Council enabled listing properties on the Heritage Register, but hasn't done so yet. And this is because when they enabled listing properties, we went back to the Municipal Heritage Committee and started to identify some properties. So this is the first list of properties that myself and the Heritage Committee has identified as being appropriate for listing that we're having a look at today. All right, so what is listing? So the Ontario Heritage Act allows municipalities to include listed properties on its heritage registered. So these are properties that are not designated, but have been identified as having some heritage value to the community. One of the important things about listing is that it's not designation. So there are no restrictions on listed properties except that if an owner wishes to demolish one, they must provide 60 days notice if they want to demolish that structure or relocate a listed building or structure. So this doesn't place a lot of restrictions on a property owner. It provides a review period of 60 days if a demolition permit is sought. So why list properties? Listing properties is part of a proactive heritage management strategy and is a recommended municipal best practice in Ontario. This is not required under the Ontario Heritage Act, but it is something that many municipalities do and find to be a very effective heritage management tool. It forms part of a wider strategy for managing our heritage assets in our various communities, and it's also an important planning tool. So proactive heritage management is something that listing really contributes to. Proactive heritage management actively identifies properties that have significance to our various communities within the municipality, and it provides clarity to owners, staff, and council through defined policies and procedures. Proactive heritage management benefits the community because it provides a clear and transparent decision-making process and also clarity on what properties in the municipality actually have heritage value, so everybody knows. It also benefits council by creating a framework to review and make decisions on heritage properties as part of the future growth and development of the municipality. So currently in our municipality, Kawartha Lakes has 81 individually designated properties. That's properties that are designated by bylaw under Part 4 of the Ontario Heritage Act. We also have 2 heritage conservation districts established in 2017, downtown Lindsay HCD and the Oak Street HCD in Fenland Falls. Most of our designated properties at the moment are in Lindsay. Part of this is because prior to amalgamation, Lindsay had a very active heritage committee that designated a lot of properties prior to 2001. But Kawartha Lakes has many more heritage resources that have not been formally identified or protected, especially in our rural areas. And this is something that a proactive heritage management strategy looks to rectify. So the benefits of listing, and there's quite a number of these, both for the municipality and also for property owners themselves. So it provides a tool for formally identifying heritage resources in our communities. It creates a clear process for assessing a property for heritage value if a development application which includes demolition of existing buildings is received. It allows staff and the Heritage Committee time to assess properties and make a recommendation to council, and also for council to have that information so it can assess properties. It creates a balanced approach between not imposing restrictions on a property owner, but still assisting with municipal heritage management, and it provides clarity and transparency to property owners regarding the potential heritage value of their property by formally identifying it and putting it on the Heritage Register. So I'd like to go through now the processes for addition to the register and also for removal to the register, so council has a clear idea of how this process works, and it's actually fairly straightforward. So these steps are established by the Ontario Heritage Act. So first, properties are identified as having potential heritage value. That could be architectural, it could be historical, it could be contextual. Next, the Municipal Heritage Committee makes a recommendation whether or not they believe these properties are appropriate for listing. That recommendation then comes to council as it is today, and council reviews and approves the properties for listing, or it chooses not to list the property depending on its opinion on the topic. One of the things about listing properties under the Ontario Heritage Act is the Act actually does not have any criteria for determining if a property should be listed. All it says is that a municipality believes the property may have cultural heritage value, which is very open-ended. So in most municipalities, it is the best practice to use Regulation 906 of the Ontario Heritage Act to determine if a property should be listed. And this is the regulation that we use for determining if something should be designated. This is the practice that staff and the Heritage Committee are using to assess potential properties for listing because it provides consistency in terms of our identification process for listed and also for designated properties. So there are 9 criteria which examine architectural, historical, and contextual significance. One of the other things under the Act is that there's no requirement to notify owners when their property is listed on the Heritage Register. This is something the council can just do. It has no obligation to tell owners that their property is being listed. That being said, in 2017, when council initially passed the resolution to allow listed properties on our register, it also passed a resolution that property owners should be notified when their property is listed. This is a municipal best practice in Ontario, and it really helps provide transparency regarding the process and allows owners to be involved in the process and also to be involved in protecting and celebrating heritage assets in their communities. Of the properties which are proposed for listing today, the 6 properties which are not owned by the municipality, the owners have all been notified by letter. And for the municipally owned property, the Oakwood Library, our manager of building and property has been notified. So everyone is aware that this is happening today. So on the flip side of adding to the register, properties can also be removed from the register. The process for removal is that if an owner applies for a demolition permit, they can be removed to the register if that demolition permit is granted. So if an owner wants to apply for a demolition permit, the owner provides information regarding why they're demolishing the property and its future use, and that triggers that 60-day review period. During the review period, the Heritage Committee reviews the application and makes a recommendation from council. They'll receive information from staff, as well as all the information that the owner provided so that they can make a decision. Council will then review the application and the recommendation of the Municipal Heritage Committee, and they can either designate the property if they believe that the demolition is unwarranted, or they can approve the issuance of a demolition permit and the removal from the register. That being said, when an owner applies to demolish a property, it's not always a designated demolished situation. One of the nice things about listing is that it brings everybody to the table to have a discussion before a property is demolished. So from time to time, there could be a situation where a property could be preserved, but also allows, for example, a development project to go ahead. This could include things like integrating a historic property into the future development on the site, or removal of the property to a different location. This is a conversation that's had on an individual basis, property to property, but listing means that everybody's actually having that conversation instead of buildings coming down very quickly. So in your report today, there are 7 properties that are proposed for listing. They've all been identified and assessed based on criteria under Regulation 906 of the Act, and they are all important and cherished heritage properties in our community. I think many of you will recognize them and will be very familiar with them. So I'm just going to go through them quickly so you have an idea of what they are. So the first property is Christchurch Anglican Church in Bobcaygeon. And this is an extremely important ecclesiastical building in the municipality, I think more so than some people might realize, because of its construction method and the design in which it was built. It was designed by Peterborough architect John Belcher, who is a very prominent ecclesiastical architect, and it was built between 1870 and 1871. It also has important associations with Bobcaygeon lumber baron Mossam Boyd. The next property is Senior Public School here in Lindsay. It was constructed in 1910, and it is an excellent and very important example of an early 20th century Beaux-Arts style school in this municipality. It has a very high degree of craftsmanship in its classically inspired architectural details. One of the most notable things about it is its belfry, as well as the surround on its entrance. It's very much a landmark building in Lindsay on Kent Street, and an important local educational facility that many people have attended over the years. The next building is Cherry Tree Lodge in Sturgeon Point. Some of you may be familiar with this because it's on our Arts and Heritage Trail. It is a privately owned cottage, but the owners from time to time open it up in the summer for people to have a look at. It was constructed in 1887 for Lindsay artist and writer W.A. Goodwin. And it is one of the first purpose-built cottages in the Kawarthas, and it still stands in its original condition. It has significant associations with Goodwin, who extensively documented life in the region through his paintings and drawings in the late 19th century. And it's an important property in the historic Sturgeon Point Cottage community that has many important historic cottages in it. The next one is the Bank of Toronto, now known as TD Bank in Omemee. It's there on the corner on King Street, and it's an excellent example of a 20th century small town bank building that also demonstrates a high degree of craftsmanship in its classical features, including its ornate entrance. The architect of this building isn't known, but it was likely designed by prominent architect W.R.L. Blackwell, who's from Peterborough, and who designed many buildings for the Bank of Toronto. And this is one of the only one of his bank buildings that's still standing in Ontario. And it's an anchor corner building in downtown Omemee, and I think everybody recognizes it when they're driving through as well. The next property is the Mackenzie Inn in Kirkfield, which was originally the country estate of Sir William Mackenzie. He's a significant figure in the local community due to his rise from a local contractor and businessman to one of Canada's most prominent businessmen around the turn of the century for his role in railway development, including the Transcontinental Railway as well as the TTC in Toronto. It's a very important example of a Victorian country estate. It's a landmark building in the village of Kirkfield, now an inn and wedding venue. This building is also known throughout the province, and I think many people from outside this municipality know of this building as well and have been there or driven through Kirkfield and would recognize it. The next is a very small building, the old Bethany Post Office, which is now home to the Manvers Historical Society. This is a really tiny building, but it has a really great history. It was constructed in 1875, and it's one of the last freestanding post offices in Ontario. It's significant for its East-like style spindle work on its veranda, as well as its false facade. It looks like it has a square roof, but it doesn't. It's actually a gable roof with a flat piece on front to make it look bigger than it is. And it's also one of the oldest buildings in downtown Bethany, and it's a survivor of a 1911 fire, which destroyed a significant part of Bethany's downtown. The last building is the Oakwood Library, which was originally school section number 12 in Oakwood. It was constructed in 1913 as the local school. It's a unique and intact example of a turn-of-the-century rural schoolhouse, and it also has a high degree of craftsmanship, particularly in its open belfry. It's an important landmark property in Oakwood with historical significance to the development of the community around the turn of the century. And as I mentioned, it's now the Oakwood Library. So what are the next steps? So the next steps in terms of listing is for council to list properties. And after these properties are listed, that process is one that's ongoing. Properties are continually identified, and council can list properties over time as those are brought forward to them. Now, with the new heritage planning position in economic development, the city's heritage portfolio is currently being expanded and also streamlined to encourage strong management of our heritage assets and excellent service to the public. We have several policies coming forward, which will be coming to you in early 2020, which are designed to guide proactive heritage management in the municipality so that we have clear and transparent processes for all the heritage work that we do. Today, you'll also have a delegated authority bylaw, which is part of that ongoing policy package, which will formalize the approvals process that we currently have in place for the alterations of heritage properties and bring the city in line with provincial legislation. It also provides the city with a municipal best practice in terms of making the approvals process easier for members of the public who own designated properties. In our community, there's a significant growing interest in building our heritage assets and using them as key parts of our economic development within our various communities and throughout the municipality as a whole. This is very encouraging in terms of looking at heritage and its preservation in the long term. And Kawartha Lakes can really be a leader in rural heritage preservation through expansion of its program and developing exciting new opportunities that make Kawartha Lakes an exciting place to visit, to work, and also to live. Thank you very much.
Thank you. That was very informative. We get a motion to receive. Councillor Ashmore and Richardson, are there any questions for the deputant regarding presentation? Go ahead, Councillor Seymour Fagan.
Yes, hi, thanks, through you. You said that you don't have to tell the owners, or we don't have to let them know. These properties, do the owners know that you're considering them?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, yes, all the owners have been notified. So this municipality has notifies owners, and that's what we're going to do going forward. That's a best practice in terms of transparency. The letters went out to all the property owners. I heard back from several of them, so I know that they received them.
Okay, thank you. I lived on a preservation block in Minneapolis, and I think it's very, very important that we start looking at our heritage and documenting it, and also outline, which I think you're planning on doing, the steps that people have to take if they do have a preservation home or property, because I know some of them can be very onerous. Where we lived, it was very onerous, but some of them are wide open like we have right now. So thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions? Seeing none, we have a motion to receive. All in favor? That's passed. Thank you very much. We got a couple of reports. Emily, don't go too far. If we have any questions, we can ask you. I won't forget the reports this time, right? Right. Item 7.2, so we have listing properties on the Heritage Register. These are the properties you just saw. That report, ED 2019-022, listing properties on the Heritage Register be received. That the proposed listing of non-designated properties listed in Appendix A to report, same report, be approved. And that this recommendation be brought forward to Council for consideration at the next regular Council meeting. Who's our Heritage rep? Councillor Ashmore, will you move that? Thank you. You'll move that. Second by Councillor Seymour Fagan. Any questions, concerns, comments? All in favor? That's passed. Thank you. 7.3 is delegated authority for alterations to Heritage Properties Bylaw. That report ED 219-023, delegated authority for alterations to Heritage Properties Bylaw be received. That the necessary bylaw be forwarded to Council for consideration at the next regular Council meeting, and that this recommendation be brought forward to Council for consideration at the next regular Council meeting. So I have a quick question for you. Certainly, delegated authority, you're suggesting the Director of Development Services. But for heritage listed properties, it seems that most of them are renovations. And I'm wondering why the Director of Development Services and not the Chief Building Official. It's not anything personal with you, Chris. It's just, we're not talking zoning and such like that. So why not just deal with the Chief Building Official as a designated authority as opposed to our Director of Development Services? Is there any rationale there?
So the bylaw specifies that it's the Director of Development Services or designate, which in practical terms would be me as the heritage planning person. So those would be funneled through me. That was the wording that was recommended to me when writing the bylaw.
Okay, no, fair enough. I'm just curious. Anybody want to move that motion for the designated authority? Councillor O'Reilly and Richardson. Questions, comments? Question? Councillor Ashmore, go ahead.
Just a question through you to Emily. If anybody wants to purchase, say for example, the TD Bank in Omemee, they can still carry on with the same commercial activity, or does that affect the function of the building, like how it's zoned and all that? Like somebody else can buy it and still be like a bank or a trust company or credit union? I'm just giving that as an example because that's the one that I know the most, I guess. So, and I guess that applies for all these other ones here too. Like, does it change a lot? Like somebody buys that and then it's already designated historical. I should know this because I'm on the Heritage Committee, but I'm just warning because it doesn't stop what the function is right now. Is that correct? Like it could carry on as another business?
That's correct. So designation doesn't affect use, and listing doesn't affect use either. So with listing, it really only kicks in if somebody wants to demolish the building. With individually designated properties or those in a heritage conservation district, that really only applies to alterations. To heritage features. So if they're making changes to heritage features on a designated property, they'd have to get a permit to do that. But there is a process in place for that to happen. If there's rezoning, that would just go through our regular planning processes.
Any other questions? We have a motion. All in favor? That's passed. Sorry, Chris, did you have a comment?
I'm just going to clarify that, a lot of the alterations are going to be not even require a building permit. They're going to be internal or minor in nature, and so it wouldn't necessarily go through the building department.
Thank you for that. Okay, so that's passed. Thank you very much for your presentation, Emily. I'm sure we'll see you again. I think you've threatened to come back in the new year with a whole new plan, haven't you? Thank you. 8.1 is our 2020 to 2029 Housing and Homelessness Plan presentation. Rod Sutherland, Director of Human Services, welcome.
Thank you. Good afternoon. I'm here on behalf of Hope Lee, who's away this week. So I'm just going to give a very brief update on the new 10-year housing homelessness plan, more concentrated on the background and the process for the plan, and the actual report or plan itself is on the agenda, two reports up from now. So just a bit of background on the housing and homelessness plan. The Ontario's Housing Services Act requires that each service manager has a 10-year plan to address housing and homelessness for their service area. And as you know, City of Kawartha Lakes is the service manager for both Kawartha Lakes and the County of Haliburton. The original housing and homelessness plan, the first, was adopted by both councils back in 2014, covering 2014 through 2023. And under the Act, there's a 5-year review period where we must review the entire plan. And the first periodic review, first 5-year review, is due December 31st this year. And as you know, we've been quite a few presentations recently on housing from Hope. There's a number of different municipal plans and strategies that talk about housing overall, both affordable housing and housing in general, that often address or cover all income brackets. As service manager for housing and the housing and homelessness plan, the focus is specifically to low and moderate income levels, where affordable housing is defined as rent or accommodation costs not to exceed 30% of gross annual household income. So the plan process, we had a project coordinating committee. It's been meeting for about the last year in reviewing the existing plan. That committee involved human services staff, planning staff, corporate services, economic development, and Office of Strategy Management. And consultations included public sessions in both the city and county, surveys, community through targeted consultations with housing providers, various planning tables, as well as network groups. And as part of the plan review, again, it was a 10-year plan with a 5-year review. We went in with the approach of looking at a revised 10-year plan. So it'll be sort of 10-year shifting plan, like every 5 years at this point. We would revise it for the next 10-year period, and that's the approach we took with this plan to cover 2020 to 2029. So the plan itself, as highlighted in the report, highlights the accomplishments of the last 5 years, and targets the 8 primary policy areas identified in the provincial policy statement. And the plan includes objectives, outcomes, measures, targets for each of the 8 areas. There are a total of 73 objectives listed within the plan for the next 10 years. And the targets, when I mentioned the targets, the report is coming up next with the treasurer. The targets recommended originally at the September Committee of the Whole meeting are what's currently included within the plan that's presented today. Should those, the actual final council decision that those plan targets numbers rather, approval will still come forward to the November 19th council meeting following direction from today. So, as I said, there is a provincial review underway currently. The plan itself is not approved by the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing, but it is a requirement that they review it. So that review is going on now based on the draft. Both city and county council are required to adopt it for the province. Any provincial recommendations come back are considered in terms of any impact to the plan itself. Generally, from the last plan, they came back with general comments on the approach as opposed to changing content. Following the approval, there'll be a communication strategy out to the community, as well as a continued requirement of the plan for annual reporting by June of each year to both city and county councils. And that's everything. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. We'll get a motion to receive the presentation. Councillor Vale, Councillor Elmsley, are there any questions for the director regarding the presentation? And we have a couple of reports here. Seeing none, all in favor? That's passed. Thank you, sir. So the first report that goes with that is the 8.2, the Affordable Housing Targets Financial Analysis. Is that, yeah, Carolyn Danes is here, our treasurer. hiding behind the podium. So this is a report to be received for information purposes. I don't know if you recall, at the last council, Committee of the Whole, you can correct me if I'm wrong, Director, but Committee of the Whole, council endorsed the aggressive plan for housing, and then we asked for a costing financial analysis on what that would cost. So we haven't actually at council endorsed that option yet. We wanted the financial information as best we could get first, and that's what we're getting here today. And then the second report is verifying those numbers. Is that correct?
Correct. Yes,
Verifying
September
that plan?
Committee of the Whole made a recommendation. That the recommendation was passed at Committee of the Whole to bring those targets to council. Then at that council meeting in September, the motion was to bring back a request for costing, which is this report. And then depending on that, then the original recommendation from the September Committee of the Whole will come to the November 19th council meeting with the actual targets to approve.
Unless council changes it. Right, correct. Okay, so let's deal with the costing report that we have here first. 8.2 is information, affordable housing targets, costing. It's really just to be received for information purposes. You'll move that, Councillor Yeo, seconded by, come on, stay with us, Councillor Riley, thank you. Are there any questions regarding the costing? Councillor Elmsley, go ahead. You okay?
When this came forward, I think at that time I tried to point out that we were kind of picking numbers out of the air. And this is exactly what we're doing, because there are so many variables. And I think that's what Ms. Daines is trying to show in her report, that there are so many variables that you can't possibly do anything that is reasonably quantifiable, especially when you're doing it over the next 10 years. And I just want to point out that this is a target, and it's a target that is dependent upon many other things happening. And it doesn't mean because we sign on to it that we must do it and the city must take on all this debt. All of these other things that are being talked about in here, working with the private sector and working with not-for-profits and doing things like secondary suites, and all of those things are going to play into it if we're to be successful in meeting these targets. So I don't want us to beat up on the plan and beat up on what is being proposed here as, oh, we committed to that, now we have to do it and we have to go out and borrow all this money. We don't have to do that. It is dependent upon other layers of government coming to the table. It is dependent upon a whole lot of things. And that's what I was trying to say when we first made this motion. And I think it's certainly what Ms. Daines is showing in her report. So I just wanted to make those comments, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more. It's just laying it out the best they can with the information they have. Councillor Yeo, you had a question?
I just wanted to thank the deputy mayor for his long-winded, I told you so.
Okay, so I have if we're back on track, I have a question, Caroline, if I could. So I noticed, and I'm not disagreeing with what, you made it was made very clear when we asked for this information that, even by hope, that we can't lock in these finances. There's too many unknowns. But one of the concerns that, that I read in this financing report is, the possibility of utilizing a lot of our debt capacity to reach these goals. It doesn't talk about the payback and the money we'll receive, but that's not really relevant in the debt capacity we'll still have to incorporate if we want to aggressively meet these goals moving forward. It won't necessarily be the worst case scenario where we get no assisted financing along the way, to Councillor Elmsley's point, but we're projecting some pretty, I'm sort of reading that into your report that there's a concern there. I mean, we have a lot of infrastructure needs in our city, and are we, I don't know, in your opinion, are we committing, and we're not committing because there's a lot of unknowns, but are we treading a fine line here with, trying to reach goals that are going to handicap us in the future when we have other projects to do and our debt limit starts rising up and up and up and up and up to the point where the province says, hey, what are you guys doing over there? Can you comment on that?
Yes, through you to yourself. Yes, that has been a concern of mine as we've started to move along with increasing the number of units in housing, because we never have set a housing debt limit for housing, like a separate debt limit for housing. We have a debt limit for our tax levy projects. We have a debt limit for our water and wastewater projects, and I foresee a few bigger projects coming down the pipe in the water and wastewater area that will eat up a bit of our debt limit, or overall annual repayment limit with the ministry. So I have committed, we are coming forward with our 10-year financial plan in January. So part of that will be assigning a debt limit of what we feel, given all of the needs that we have in the tax levy and water wastewater area, what we feel comfortable housing having for a debt. This, as I stated in the report, this is a worst case scenario, and there's no intention by housing, by human services, or by corporate services that we would construct for all of the units that we're saying are going to be developed through this 10-year plan. I just wanted to show you that this is a concern if that was definitely the case. We can't construct all of them. We have to look at other options. And that's why it was almost impossible to do a plan, because I don't know what the other options are.
So you're going to come back in the spring with an update to our financial plan, and in that plan, we'll be allocating some of our remaining debt capacity over the next 10 years to different projects, including housing. So I guess we're making a target, and I know it's just a target, but we're being asked to not commit, because that's not the right word, but endorse a target when we don't really know what our debt capacity is for housing, moving forward. And is that a realistic expectation? I don't know. It just seems like we're getting ahead of it. Would we not be better to have that number and then say, why don't we build what we can within our affordability factor moving forward, instead of trying to be literally the most aggressive municipality in Eastern Ontario regarding affordable housing? And I know there's a need there. I'm not, it's not a question to you. I know there's a need there. There's always going to be a need there, but we have to be able to afford it as well. And I'm struggling with that link. And I know it's just targets. I know everybody's going to say it's just a target. Don't panic. I get it. But, we get into a lot of trouble with targets when we start setting targets, and all of a sudden it gets built into our DC charges. It starts getting built into our operating budgets. And the next thing you know, what's going on? We can't afford any of this. So I just want to make sure we know what we're sort of getting. I don't know. That's not even a question. So thank you for letting me rant. Director, did you have a comment? You've got your button pushed.
Just if I may, just a couple of comments, I guess. One is from the worst case scenario, as the Treasurer mentions, from a financial standpoint in terms of the highest cost, I would perhaps rephrase that a best case scenario in terms of meeting the actual housing need, community need, as you mentioned. Also in terms of other options, I guess from a staff standpoint, looking at it as a target the council set, that gives direction to staff to actually pursue that, what opportunities we have federally, provincially, municipally. The county has in informal conversations referenced, is there an opportunity for them to carry any debt? There might be possibilities around that. That's something to pursue. But again, by setting that target as direction to staff for pursuing those options, as opposed to if it's a lower target, really the direction is then aim for this level and then sort of stop at that. I'm not saying that's literally what council would be saying with a lower target, but in terms of that direction is setting that target, it gives the council or staff that support to pursue those options, discussions with county and other levels to look at other financing options.
I think we're into report 2 here, but we'll just keep going, okay? So say council endorsed the middle target, right? Not the status quo, but not the ideal target, the moving forward target. Like, what is the downside in council endorsing that? Are we really saying if we endorse that and opportunities come available, staff won't pursue funding options because we haven't identified the ideal target moving forward. I mean, it still seems like, it just seems like a good compromise, affordable target, in my opinion, moving forward. And the way you're saying it's like, unless we have the ideal one exposed, we're not going to pursue all these, sources of funding moving forward. And I find that hard to believe. We wouldn't do that regardless. And if we can go past our target, what's the downside to that? We'll just bring it forward on an affordability factor. Can we afford to finance it at this point? Like, what's the downside to taking that middle road just to be on the safe side?
From my perspective, Mr. Mayor, I would say from a direction to staff and in terms of the messaging to the community in terms of this is the identified need across we've done various plans, from poverty reduction plans, housing master plan, housing and homelessness plan, of what is our actual goal and target of where we want to be is our approach in terms of what we want to get to. The message of saying our target, and I agree, would we stop then and sort of say we've reached it, we're done? No, but in terms of the messaging, in terms of the community and support of all those other plans and work that's been done and could be done, I would say setting the target that is what we actually need gives us that foundation, and with all those provisions in terms of each time any project is presented with any cost associated, that it will always come to council, but it gives us that support in terms of this is what the community's goal is to reach, to actually meet the need of the community.
Thank you. So let's deal with the financing first. That's my fault, sorry. Do you have a question on the financing part of it? Because we've got a motion, it's just to receive for information purposes. Are any questions on the, Caroline's here, is there any questions on that? So seeing none, we have a motion for that, all in favor? That's passed. So then 8.3 is the Housing and Homelessness Plan for endorsement. Councillor Elmsley, what do you?
I will give you the motion, and if I could talk about a follow-up motion that may make some sense, and it may not make any sense, but what if we had a further staff report back on a yearly basis on the number of homes that have been created through all agencies and all opportunities, and if we find that we're falling short of our targets, that they be adjusted at that time. And I think what that might do is we can accept the larger figures, understanding, because I think the great fear is that if you're supposed to build, 200 houses a year, if you don't build 200 houses in the first year, you only build 100, then the next year you got to build 300. And if you only build 100 the next year, now suddenly you got to build 400 in order to catch up where you are. The same thing as we talk about in our financial plan. If we don't stick to our financial plan, then it makes the next year harder and harder. So I'm just thinking that if we had a report back on a yearly basis to make suitable adjustments to the targets going forward, it might make it more palatable and also be a more sensible plan, and we can still be aggressive and go forward to try and meet our targets, but understanding that there are limitations to what we have to do. So I don't know if that's a reasonable type of follow-up.
Well, let's see if we can get a seconder.
Okay.
So you'll move the motion as printed.
Yeah,
and
and it can be a follow-up.
Yeah, well, I think we can just add to that, so the motion as printed, Director, included as Appendix A, be endorsed. Is that endorsing the ideal model? Is that what that is?
The ideal, the targets within it are as the ideal model. So if there is direction on another model or other targets or anything else, it could be this.
But Councillor Elmsley is moving it as printed, so that's endorsing the ideal model as previous.
Yes, as printed right now.
So that's what you're moving, with the extra that staff report back on the numbers. So update to the plan on a yearly basis regarding number of units. Okay, does that,
Yeah.
you're probably
I
going
think
to do
that's
that
fair.
regardless?
The plan does require, we are required to report annually. The first report would be June of next year, but for consideration at any time, I think from the councilor's wording, that any time or each year for consideration of adjustment.
So just yearly, yearly's fine, and then somewhere within that year with a yearly update. You got that? We don't need to say that we can adjust, we can do that. Anybody want to second that motion? Councilor O'Reilly, you'll second that? You've already spoke to it? You're good? Do you want to speak to it? Any other questions, comments? Councilor Seymour Fagan?
Yes, why would we go for the ideal one if we're going to adjust anyhow? Why wouldn't we go for the middle one? Because if we need more homes, then we can adjust for more homes instead of hitting the high target, which if we don't do, it won't look good on us. And if we do, it might cost us money we don't have.
Maybe the mover can answer that.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And through you, I think Mr. Sutherland may be in a better position to answer than I am. But I think at the housing meetings, we are challenged by the federal government and the provincial government to meet these targets. So you're setting the targets out there, and taking the ideal target is kind of like reaching for the brass ring. And now we will have a mechanism whereby we review it yearly to see if we need to lower the brass ring. I think by taking the middle target, we aren't doing those things that we're being asked, and I don't know it to be true. And again, Mr. Sutherland or Ms. Daines may be in a better position to answer that. Will we therefore not be considered for funding going forward because we haven't picked the targets that would be there that we're being asked to do? And again, I come back as we, and don't want to flog it, but it's a target. And I think that's a poor explanation, but it's the one I have.
Director?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I think one of the other points, maybe I was remiss in not mentioning earlier as well, is around with the higher target as well. One of the opportunities that provides for staff is from the planning perspective, whether it be with through KLH, Housing Corporation, or with other providers, is the work that's always going on in development, trying to work towards projects. There's always like numerous projects sort of underway in the early stages, and various things coming along. The higher target supports that as well, continuing towards those multiple sort of streams in planning. They may all not come to fruition for various reasons, but the further it's along in the process, when funding does come available, and we've seen this the last number of years, certainly from both federally and provincially, is they're using shovel-ready approach or very short-term funding. Word comes out, can you get a project undergo in 6 months, a year, like very short timing? So the higher targets, from a risk standpoint, to me, there isn't a risk there for the spending too much because that comes back for approval, but it gives that opportunity to do that early planning so that funding opportunities come along, we can jump at them and get them potentially, whereas if we had to come back and say we've got something or we don't have something underway because for whatever reason, it might take a little bit longer to get that going. So I can't guarantee that will happen, but I can guarantee, or I can say that over the years, the projects that generally get funded are the ones that are already underway and can happen quickly and get results very quickly as well.
Thank you. So the middle target, we won't still be doing that? I would think that we'd still be doing that if we were trying to hit the middle target.
So, Mr. Mayor, I would say we'd be doing that with any of the targets. Like we have work there, but again, with the higher target, when we have today, there's the deputation around potential for housing in Coboconk area. There's groups been coming forward over time. The more that we can engage them with a realistic that they fit within our targets. Again, coming to the ministry is that we have targets, we have plans that support these programs or these developments. It just gives us that much stronger a business case, I would say.
Councillor Vale?
I guess just a couple things. I guess just to the whole target and shovel-ready project, I'm kind of with Councillor Seymour Fagan here, is I don't see the correlation between having a realistic target and shovel-ready projects, right? It goes back to a target is a target. We should be formulating shovel-ready projects regardless of what that project is. So I really see it kind of as being irrelevant when it comes to that, right? And I think the middle target, is that not still an aggressive target, right? Like, I think there's a big difference between being aggressive and being totally unrealistic, with all due respect, right? I think there's a big difference. Like, I think you want targets that you have to stretch to reach, but you have to be able to reach them. And when I look at the ideal model and not not taking away from what the need is, right? We know what the need is, but it's no different than doctor recruitment, right? We know that we need 20 or 30 doctors in this municipality, right? If the doctor recruitment board was to stand here and say that they've got a target of recruiting that every year, right? That's not realistic, and they know that. They come with realistic, based on past performance and everything, of how to hit it, right? So I look at this the same way. The need is never going to change. It's going to be a moving target, right? Every year that need is going to change. It's going to come down a little bit, and then it's going to increase as people get housing, lose housing, need housing and everything, right? I think that, I think it's important that we set an aggressive target, but a target that is achievable.
Thank you for that. Councillor Riley?
I can live with either of the results. I think that we're going in the right direction. Just a message, question to Director Marshall. The new subdivisions, I mean, these, if we're looking for affordable housing within those, they're voluntary, aren't they? We have no.
Yeah, I mean, there is a requirement to meet a certain percentage of affordable housing, and I guess it's more of a recommendation as opposed to a requirement. They are meeting the mix of housing with the townhouses, and they have proposed some apartments, but whether they would meet the same sort of standard of affordability that is being looked for at this stage, I don't think it would fit the same category.
That's a good conversation. Any other comments, questions? The motion, do you want to sum up?
We're probably going to have the same discussion at council when it comes there.
I'm
That's
not
it.
sure what that, we can discuss it here. That's what we're here for. We're having a good discussion about it. You want to say the same things again at council.
I'd just be repeating the same arguments.
That you opened with. Yeah, no, fair enough. No, okay, so the motion's on the floor. Everybody understand where we're going or what's being asked? So it's who seconded it? Councillor Riley. It's the ideal model, and that the recommendation be brought forward, or that an update be brought forward each year for an updated council. So call the question. All in favor? 1, 2, 3, 4. Motion fails. Anybody want to move moving forward the middle model? Councillor Richardson and Seymour Fagan. Same thing with an update each year. I think that's a good addition to it. Call the question. All in favor? That's passed. Thank you. Okay, that's our presentations and housing. Consent 10.1. $1 million makeover. Sorry, is that the right one? 10.1 is the $1 million makeover. Second intake, Callie Arbor's here if there's any questions. That the report speaks for itself. ED 219025, $219 million makeover funding allocation, second intake be received, and that this recommendation be brought forward to council for consideration at the next regular council meeting. You'll move that, Councillor Yeo? Thank you. Seconded by Councillor Seymour Fagan. Any questions? Anybody need to ask Callie anything? No? All in favor? That's passed. Thanks, Callie. Thanks for hanging out with us all day. Now we get to beat up on David Kerr. So styrofoam and single-use plastics, 10.2. The motion is that that it be received, that council approve a voluntary ban of styrofoam and single-use plastics in the Kawartha Lakes, that council approves the removal of styrofoam from curbside recycling stream, and that this recommendation be brought forward to council for consideration at the next regular council meeting. Anybody want to, Councillor Yeo and Richardson, you'll second that? You want to speak to it, Councillor Yeo?
Yeah, thank you, and through you. It, contrary to what some people think, it's not as cut and dry as just ban single-use plastics. This is a great first step. This will bring it to the forefront. Hopefully people will do the right thing and they'll stop or cut back their use of single-use plastics. I know I have made a concerted effort to do it at my house, and I just hope people will do it, and I hope stores will do it. I hope everybody will get on board while we wait for the province or the federal government to do something about it. And hopefully they go after where it all begins with the manufacturing of these things and quit putting the onus on the general public to police themselves when God knows we don't have the wherewithal to do it sometimes and look after ourselves. So let's get them where it starts and let's stop making it. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Richardson, do you want to speak to it?
I do. Thanks for doing the report, David. It's instrumental at this time because, you know, across the entire world right now, everybody's speaking of it, and it's showing due cognizance of our side. And if we're doing the voluntary, it rolls out in a phase where we can control what's going on, and we can, through education and communication, show what we can do as a municipality. And I think it's an important step, so I'm glad to see it.
Councillor Elmsley?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have no problem with the single-use plastic. I have a problem with the styrofoam, and I have two problems. If we stop curbside collection of styrofoam, where's the styrofoam going? Is it going in our ditches, or are we putting it in our regular garbage? And I don't know the answer to that question, but it concerns me.
Well, I would assume if it's not picked up in recycling, we're going to accept it in garbage, in the garbage bags, not the ditches.
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor. The styrofoam would go to waste. Right now, it is actually going to waste indirectly. It's in the recycling program. It's going to Northumberland, and then Northumberland separates it out because there is no market for it. At one time, there was a market for it, and we were hopeful that members of the public, we would have a market for it and we'd be able to recycle it, but it's not that way right now.
So it will go in the clear bags with the rest of the garbage?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Good, because, well, I'm wondering if we should make that clearer, because I think the way I read it was, well, we're not picking up styrofoam anymore. Period. So that was my assumption when I saw it, that council approve a voluntary ban of styrofoam and single-use plastics, and that council approves the removal of styrofoam from the curbside recycling stream. I assumed that you couldn't put styrofoam out at all. So hearing your explanation makes sense, but I think we need to clarify it somehow, that maybe instead of
council approves
removing it from the recycling stream and putting it into
adding it to the waste stream.
Yeah, adding it into the waste stream.
We can add that as an amendment.
Yeah.
That make you okay with that, Councillor Yeo? Councillor Richardson? That's clear enough, yeah.
Okay.
You okay with that?
Yep,
Now you know what to do with your styrofoam? All right. Any other questions? I have a couple. Is there any Or even could we add to that motion that city facilities take the lead on the voluntary ban? I'm just gonna, voluntary ban, and wherever possible, take the lead on the voluntary ban wherever possible. I know there's situation with vending machines and such that we can't do that. But is there any downside, David, to us saying, if we're gonna do a voluntary ban, should we as a city not be trying to lead that voluntary ban wherever possible, recognizing that it can't always be done? When we order in a lunch or when we bring in different things, can we not sort of start thinking, we want that, but we don't want it with this, this, and this? Can you make that happen? And if we don't lead by example, is that not what we're here for? So do you see any issues with adding that to the motion, if they're okay with it, that the city sort of take the lead in a voluntary ban wherever possible?
I think that wording would be fine. There are certainly things that we can do right away. We can start with the public education component. We can start looking at certain items and get that message out there. There might be a couple items that we already have existing current contracts with that we might have a bit of a challenge with, but we can certainly look into that right away and start moving on that.
Director?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you, just want to recognize that staff in preparations report reached out to several departments, had those discussions. And that first line where it's voluntary ban of styrofoam and single-use plastics in Kawartha Lakes applies to everybody, not just our residents, but it applies to the city as well. And again, like you mentioned, it's where possible, where feasible. There are definitely facilities this is not a practical approach, as Councillor Yeo has mentioned. It's not as simple as saying no more plastic. So it's definitely some areas where we want to encourage that and promote it within, but it's an area where it has to be voluntary and make sense based on the service being provided.
So you're saying there's no need to add that line? I mean, voluntary means if I want to do it, I'll do it. If I don't, I won't. Shouldn't we as a city be leading that voluntary commitment forward? Or we're asking our residents to voluntarily do it, but we're going to voluntarily say the odd time, I'm not going to worry about it? Like, it doesn't make sense. To me, we should be taking a harder line and saying we want to lead that charge on the voluntary, and wherever possible, we want to ban them from city facilities.
Again, through Mr. Mayor, if that's council's decision to put that wording in there, we'll work with it and work with the other divisions. I'd rather leave it as is because, again, that mention of it is there. The communication's already been there. There's been several areas where we've identified potential, but we don't want to impose the expectation on our departments that where it's not feasible that you have a need to do this where it doesn't make sense, if that makes sense.
Well, that would be where it says wherever possible, right? Voluntary wherever possible. I'm trying to cover the bait. I'm just putting it up for discussion. Councillor Seymour Fagan?
Fairly aggressive communications going out on this. Like, I've seen Peterborough County doing, actually Peterborough City, doing an aggressive campaign on what they're doing right now. I was just at a restaurant show yesterday and everything was bio there. They didn't have any plastic. So that's where everyone is moving. And the restaurant industry and hospitality industry here has the options. So I think maybe if there's a way that we can get that out through communications, or I don't know how. Is that the plan?
Right. Through you to the councillor, Mr. Mayor, that is certainly the plan. There's a very important communications component with this. We would talk to our corporate communications about it, and there are a number of elements that we've gleaned from other municipalities, on this. So that's part of the plan, good communications plan for sure.
Thank you. Director Stover, so as part of this motion, would the city's purchasing policy start looking at ways that we would, when we're doing a tender, part of the criteria would be the waste, single-use plastic, styrofoam, or we do an RFP, would we start looking at, would there be a different scoring based on, you're going to package your whatever chairs and styrofoam, this group's going to package it and so. I mean, would we start, as we start doing voluntarily this ban, would we start looking at some of those policies to review to say, how do we start putting that out to some of our suppliers? Would that be part of it as we move forward in this?
Through you, we certainly can start to change some of the requirements when we go out for RFPs and tenders to make sure that that's in there and it's a requirement.
Thank you. Any further questions, comments? Councillor Yeo, you want to sum up? No. So everybody's clear on the motion? All in favor? Let's pass. Thank you. Thanks, David. 10.3. See, you get me talking enough, I forget what I originally wanted to do, so that worked well, Brian. Thanks. Waste management, making waste integrated. The report, Making Waste Matter Integrated Waste Management Strategy Update be received. That Council approves the Integrated Waste Management Strategy Update for implementation, and that this recommendation be brought forward to Council for consideration at the next regular Council meeting. Hello. Councillor Riley, you'll move that? Councillor Ashmore, you'll second that? Yeah, you want to give us a 2-minute overview, David, on this report? I think that's what Councillor Ashmore is looking for. I've got a couple of questions, but I'll let you do your overview first, please.
Sure, I'd be happy to do an overview. This program is an update of the current waste management strategy, which was developed back in 2015, and it's to build on that. There have been a number of successes from the 2015 strategy. We've been able to increase our recycling, our diversion from residential from 39 to 43% in the last 4 years. So there's that's a huge benefit. A number of the programs that have been undertaken, such as the mattress recycling program, the clear bag program, we've significantly reduced the amount of recycling going to landfills and waste going to landfills. So we've become more sustainable, and a lot of credit has to go to the public because they've gotten on board with that, and also the importance of having a good communication strategy to get that message out. So there's been a lot of successes with the waste management strategy. Moving forward, there's a lot of additional things that we can build on. Certainly reduction in single-use plastics. Some of the other things we want to look at are going to be certain ways that we can increase our public education component, get the word out there that reducing waste is good. We want to look at backyard composting. If we can remove more source-separated organics from the waste stream, we can significantly decrease the amount of waste going to the landfill. We're going to revisit looking at that source-separated organics, in the next year. That's something which is very important, and there's another number of other initiatives that we've been working with our waste management committee, and also the various public review committees for the city. They've vetted this. They've given us a lot of very good input, and we want to continually and we want to strive for our 70% waste reduction, and that's what our aim and that's what our goal is going to be able to do that. I think we all know that it's a challenge to try to have another, try to get another landfill approved. So why not see if we can reduce the amount of waste to our current landfills? That way we can sustain them. The other component about this is to look at what we want to do in the future, because we do have limited lifespan of our landfill. It seems that we have a fair amount of life right now, but when our other landfills start closing, that waste is going to have to be diverted. So one of the capital projects that we're looking into starting next year is an environmental assessment process to to look at final waste, where how we're going to manage waste well into the future, whether that's thermal destruction, whether that's a new greenfield landfill, whether that's expansion, whether that's shipping waste to some other place. So those are things that we need to look at. They're challenges that every municipality has, and we want to stay ahead of the game. So that's one of the things we want to do next year. Anyway, I think we're on the right path, and I think with no further ado, I'll just finish there. That's sort of everything in a nutshell.
Do you think we're going fast enough? Do you think we're doing enough fast enough? I mean, we keep, we're having, our landfills are running out of space, and I mean, I can totally appreciate some of these things. You have to do studies, we have to, put the proper procedures in place, but, when you talk about a 70% diversion rate by 2048, that's 30 years from now. Some of us won't even be here, right? And how do you get on board with a target 30 years down the road? Could we not are we setting some targets, 50% by 2025? And, I don't know, it just seems like we're heading in the right direction. Don't get me wrong. This is great information. It was a great report. It seems like there's things in here that we could do tomorrow if we wanted to do, and I wonder why we're waiting. When we can do our recycling from, in a clear bag from 20% to 10%, why do we have to study that for a year and then look at implementing it? Why don't we just do it? Why don't we just raise our tipping fees and use that money to offset the cost of backyard composters, to get some of that out of the garbage, and we start doing some of these. I took a trailer load of stuff to the landfill a month ago, and it was half my basement, and it cost me $11. It was ridiculous. I said to her, are you giving me a deal because I'm the mayor? And she says, absolutely not. And I thought that should have been like $20, $30 worth of, waste. And I just wonder, are we, I know our fees aren't as high as they could be, but are there some programs that we can change and implement to accelerate some of these programs faster so that, we can hit some of these goals a little bit quicker? That's not a criticism of you guys, David. I like some of these ideas. I just wonder some of these targets for 30 years down the road, and I don't know, there's a couple of them in here. End of this year, 1 bag per week garbage collection. I know that would be the end of the world for some people, but, public spaces, the recycling, more bins and stuff. If we raise some tipping fees, can we not offset some of those costs toward, again, the backyard composters or more recycling bins in our parks to try to promote that? And I don't know, I'm just asking. I read this and it's a great report, and I'm on board. I'll certainly support it. I just wonder if there's some things in there that we could really do a lot quicker if we really wanted to get on top of this, because we're running out of landfill space, and everybody tells me we have a climate emergency, so let's get on it and do something about it rather than just passing resolutions that, that are going to do something 30 years down the road. So, yeah, you're at the end of my day, so sorry about that.
No, that's fine. And they're all good comments. And part of the waste strategy is we've tried to structure the waste strategy so that there are short-term things that we can do right away. And I think that's a message that we can do through our waste app. We have Recycling Coach. That's an excellent waste app. We've got a huge number of users on that. We can put this information on our website, information initiatives that we can do right away. We're looking at bulky plastics recycling. We want to launch that in 2020. We're looking at expanding our mattress recycling program. That's something that we're building on success. We want to do that in 2020. So these are improved public recycling. That again, that's 2020. The textile program. We're working with Fleming College, and that's actually one of the courses that they're doing is to help developing a textile program, for the municipality. These are all initiatives that we're moving forward with in the next year. And if there's something, and as well, the bylaw reducing the amount of recyclables and garbage, we're hoping to amend the bylaw on next year so that we can reduce it from 20% to 10%. So these are all things that are going to improve. These are things that we're going to do right away. And two, if there's anything that comes up that we want to do right away. We've tried to leave the waste strategy so that it's flexible and we can make those changes. So it's a dynamic, it's a moving thing. If things make sense, let's try to do that. And I just want to just add too, you know, the waste management industry is moving very, very quickly, and many of the people here have heard about extended producer responsibility. So we're going to be coming to council fairly regularly, you know, in the next, you know, over the next few months with ideas too on how we're going to deal with the producers when the producers are going to be paying for, you know, recycling, and how we need to adjust with that. So there's going to be a lot of changes, lots happening. It's exciting, but certainly we're going to address this.
And I totally get that, and I know you're doing some great work, and these are some great programs that we've implemented that have been very successful. I can't help but think there's some smaller things that we could do to help move some of those things along faster. And if you've got ideas and you want to bring them forward to this council, I think we'd be very open to hear, you know, why wait till next year to change the bylaw to go to 10%, right? Like, do it at the beginning of the year. Bring the tipping fees back for review. Let's have a look, you know, can we get a little more and put that money into another program? So anything we can do to help, don't be afraid to bring them forward. I'm not criticizing by any means. I'm just, these are great programs. They're such great programs. Let's try and get them implemented as fast as we can. That's all I'm trying. But I totally realize there's staff limitations to that too. So thank you. We've got a bunch of questions here. Sorry. Councillor Helmsley, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I was just curious whether we're working at cross purposes here in terms of we're taking styrofoam out of the recycling stream and putting it back into the waste stream. At the same time, we're trying to reduce waste. And is that self-defeating, or do we have a plan of what we're going to do with the styrofoam?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, we are going to be working with our other municipalities. We're going to be working with the Ministry of the Environment, Conservation and Parks. We're going to be talking to CIF, the Municipal Waste Association, all the different associations to try to find a good purpose for styrofoam. Right now, unfortunately, there isn't a good market for it. You know, if we can find a market for it, then we certainly will, and we'll continue to look at that. It is in cross purposes. You know, we would like to be able to take everything out and divert everything from the landfill so that our landfills would last us 1,000 years. But that's very difficult to do, and I think as we have this extended producer responsibility, the producers are going to be more involved in it, and they'll see the public comments as well that styrofoam is something that has sort of gone over excess right now, and people will be looking at different ways to pack material. So I'm hoping that there'll be an overall reduction in styrofoam just from market demand.
And the communication factor, right? We let people know we're not recycling styrofoam anymore because it's ending up in somebody else's landfill. Then let's ask our residents to stop buying products that are packed in styrofoam. There's your volunteer, you know, we make that should reduce, you know, if they're concerned it's going in the landfill, stop buying products that are packed in styrofoam and it won't go into the landfill.
That's
and
right.
then the producers will get the message pretty quick that that's where it has to come from, right? So,
Yeah.
Okay, I won't beat it to death. Councillor Ashmore, you had a question?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor. I was at the tip on Saturday, and it was only $5, so it was pretty bulky, but it's a pretty good deal. So I beat you. Hey.
Yeah, we warned them about you, so we told them when you come.
So my question is through you to David. Councillor Elmsley and I went to the Durham York East Energy Centre, the incineration facility. It is just a spotless place, just a phenomenal facility. That's the future, is it not, do you think? Like, I mean, they're going to build a third cell. Instead of us building a facility ourselves, it's right in Clarington, just in our backyard. Can we not partner with them or express or do a memorandum of understanding with these people? Because I think that's the future, is to send or divert some of our waste material there. So have we, I know we've talked about it at the meetings, but waste management meetings, but are we going to get serious about it next year and maybe talking to them and see if they'll have us as a partner?
Didn't we have this conversation a little
We
while
did,
ago?
yeah,
But didn't they say they're not taking any outside waste right now? They can't keep up with their own capacity, so.
True, yeah, but they're not taking any more, but they will entertain discussions with municipalities for the future.
For the future.
Yeah.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to the councillor, that's certainly something that would be included as part of the environmental assessment for long-term waste options next year, and our engineering and assets folks will help with that one, because we're going to be looking at all the different alternatives and options.
Thank you, sir. We have a motion on the floor. We have no further questions. Everybody's clear? Call the question. All in favor? That's passed. Thank you for your report and your presentation and putting up with me. Thank you. So 10.1.4 is our next report, disbanding of the Transit Advisory Committee. That report TR 2019005, disbanding of the Transit Advisory Committee, be received. Transit Advisory Committee be disbanded and the related terms of reference rescinded. The transit staff work with Transportation Working Group of the Kawartha Lakes Accessibility Advisory Committee, and that this recommendation come forward to council. Councillor Richardson and O'Reilly, you want to speak to it? Yeah. Are you the two on the, and the committees agreed to this? It was their idea. Okay. Well, it works for me. Anytime we can reduce some committees, we'll get you on another one. Don't worry, to make up for it. Call the question. All in favor? That's passed. Thank you. Correspondence. We have a memo regarding ambulance offload considerations, 10.2.1. I think acting chief is here. Sarah's here. I think this was in response to your request to look at some different funding options, Councillor Yeo, at the hospital. That the memo dated ambulance offload considerations be received, paramedic service continue to implement the current relief initiatives, and that this recommendation be brought forward to council. You'll move that? Seconded by Councillor Richardson. Do you want any questions or comments, or not at this time? All in favor? That's passed. Thank you. And we have our last correspondence is the drinking source water protection. So I've got it here. There's a motion that the October 22nd, 2019 correspondence from Darren Marini, CAO Secretary Treasurer for Otonabee Conservation regarding the, be received, and that the proposed amendments to the Trent Source Protection Plan and Assessment Report as per Section 34 of the Clean Water Act resulting from recent upgrades to the Pinewood Municipal Drinking Water System be endorsed, that the commencement of the public consultation process be authorized, and that this recommendation be brought forward to council at the next regular council meeting. That is the motion that they're looking for endorsement from this council. So, Councillor Richardson, will you move that? Second by Councillor Seymour Fagan. Any questions, comments? All in favor? That's passed. Where am I? 11 is closed. 12, we have nothing from closed. A motion to adjourn. Councillor Seymour Fagan, seconded by Councillor Yeo. All in favor? That's passed. Thank you. Good discussion. Way to go.